please welcome to the show my guest for this afternoon, Cheri Fish.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Jade. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Hello, Cheri. I'm so excited to have you. Like I was mentioning, this one's sort of a couple months in the making because you are a very busy person.
Yes, a little bit, yes.
But very happily so that, it's been, like I said, a little while that I reached out to you a while back saying, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. And you got back to me
Mhm.
saying yes, but I'm super busy this month. And we went back and forth for a while just trying to work around your schedule. You had your partner push. By
Mhm.
the way, congratulations on making partner.
Thank
Um,
you.
and yeah, that you've been busy with very positive things. So I was more
Mhm.
than happy to wait. But I am also very happy that we are finally here today. So welcome on in.
Thank you. We beat the odds. We made it. I want. Can I start by asking you a question?
Sure.
How does it feel to go viral?
It Well, I say viral, quote unquote, that it was like, like about 1,500 likes and I think like 500-ish retweets, which is a good
Aw,
amount. Like
that's a
we're not
lot.
talking crazy absurd, but it was nice. It was
Mhm.
fun to watch that go around and that, like I
Mhm.
said, of all the tweets to go viral, I'm glad that my viral tweet was one about supporting others.
Mhm.
That was very nice.
It was a very good message. I think it's a message that a lot of streamers don't feel comfortable putting out because we don't want it to feel like our viewers we don't want our viewers to feel like pressured, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but I was really happy to see it. So I wanted to
Yeah,
say
because
thank you for that.
because ironically enough, my channel is not monetized. That I qualified for affiliate, didn't take it.
Mhm.
Um, and I had a donation link up for the first year of my show. I think I got a total of 6
Mhm.
donations, and initially, my policy was 50% of any donation that came in would go to the guest. That was something I
Mm.
was adamant about from the
Ah.
start that, if I was going to be making money, I wanted to be sure that it was shared with the guest, and
Mhm.
it just became a thing that after my 1-year charity marathon in January,
Mhm.
uh, well, for the charity marathon, I naturally took down my donation link to make way for the charity link because I didn't want both
Mhm.
live. And after the charity marathon, I took that one down and just never put my own back up.
Mhm.
And, that's okay. That Vtuber Talk was not designed to be monetized. That I am very fortunate to have a good paying job. I am a single guy, so my expenses are relatively low. And for doing one
Mhm.
show a week, I just never felt really like I had to try and make money from this. And that I know
Mhm.
so many folks are actively trying to make this their living that I'd rather
Mhm.
them just give to my guest anyway.
That's very kind of you. You're just here for a titty good time.
Yes, a cherry good time indeed. Also, Celeste, Angela in the chat, thank you for that correction. Let me actually get a quick little capitalization change on that
Ah,
on the bottom part.
they know me
Uh,
better than I know me sometimes.
oop, ah, there we go.
There we
Yay!
go. Yay!
Oh, okay. Well, actually, no, I completely forgot. We jumped right in. I forgot to say,
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of the folks here are already familiar with you, Cherry, but for those who aren't, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, my name is Cherry. I am a variety slice of life streamer. I stream both here on Twitch and on YouTube, actually, although I haven't been to YouTube in a hot minute. But I like to sing, cook, craft, learn, and play. And thank you guys for joining us tonight. I hope you all have as much fun as I think we're going to have.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we were chatting
Mhm.
earlier this week, also before stream, and I'm
Mhm.
sure we're gonna have a fun time. That
Mhm.
you mentioned streaming on YouTube. That one thing that having not taken affiliate means that I'm able to actually do uh, simulcasting on Twitch and YouTube, and that's something that I'm
Yes.
meaning to look into. I'm not doing that right now, but it's one
Mhm.
of those, I suppose, perks of not taking affiliate. But uh,
Mhm.
I think for you, it made sense to do affiliate and obviously to get partner as well. And like I
Mhm.
said, congrats on that. But
Thank you. Mhm.
so you're a variety streamer. You play a lot of games, but also I would say what you're most iconic for is your working chatting streams. That it's not just chatting, but that
Mhm.
you'll usually have a hand cam and that you're working away on your keyboard. You
Mhm.
rarely actually show what you're working on, but it's just that
Mhm.
sort of comfy vibe of, hang out with someone at a cafe or something. You're each working on your
Mhm.
own thing, and there's going to be some light conversation, but that uh, you're actually working on stuff, and that it's the type of thing
Mhm.
that others can just put up in the background as they work as well. Where did the
Mhm.
idea for that initially come from? Because I don't think I've seen any other streamer, VTuber or otherwise, have a working stream of that nature.
Oh, that's a good question. I think honestly the first work stream I did, I think that week I told myself like I'm gonna make an edit of a VOD that I have, but then I was like, "Oh heck, I don't have time." Where is the time where I can do this and also like meet my daily streaming goals that I had? And then I don't know, I just had a moment. I was like, "Wait, I can work on that on stream."
No
And
los dos.
yeah, porque no los dos, right? And I did it, and I didn't think that it was something that people would really be interested in, but we all kind of had a great time, and then it kind of just became a staple of the stream from there.
Mhm, mhm. One of my favorite
Mhm.
parts of those streams is that you have this wonderful Lapras plushie, and it's
Yeah.
absolutely a normal Lapras, not a Ditto. I have no idea what you could be talking
Mhm.
about. It is just a
Mhm.
smiley, happy Lapras.
Mhm. Yes, don't get it twisted, you know. You know?
Mhm, mhm.
Nothing sus here.
Was having
Mhm.
them on camera something that started out intentional? Like, did you put them there, or did they just happen to be there already,
Oh.
and once it was noticed, you decided to leave them there?
I think, the funny thing about streaming is a lot of times, like, even though it's my stream, I feel like chat kind of takes the wheel. So I think, like, one day I just looked at my screen and I felt like, we can make this a little more aesthetic, put a few more things on the screen. And then I put Lapras on there, and people just absolutely loved her to the point where people were asking to interact with it,
Yeah, where's
basically.
Lapras? That you if memory serves, you have a
Yeah.
redeem to, pet the Lapras.
Yes, I do, I do. And actually, I think earlier this month or last month, I was like, "You guys, like, what should we do for our partner celebration?" And at that point, Lapras hadn't been on stream for a long time because I think I got her dirty while, like, cooking or something, and people were like, "Bring her back, like, give her a bath. We want her back on the stream." And it's like, "Oh, they care so much."
Now, is Lapras one of your favorite Pokemon, or was that just the particular
Oh.
Pokemon plushie that you happened to have?
I think I just happen to have Lapras here, but I think it's definitely become one of my favorite Pokemon just because of
Understandably so.
yeah, just because of all the fun that we have with her on the stream and how much people kind of associate that with me
Mhm.
now.
And
Mhm.
obviously fits with your branding, the blue coloring,
Yeah.
water, you being a
Mhm.
jellyfish VTuber.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'd say I think one of my favorite additions in your jellyfish form are when you're in an ice cream cone. I think that's just brilliant.
Yeah, that was also something where chat took the wheel. I was like, "All right, you like it? You get it. Let's keep doing it." Mhm.
What do you think is the craziest thing that chat has ever asked for that you have indulged?
Oh my gosh.
So not the craziest thing that
There
they've ever asked, but the craziest thing that you've actually said
um,
yes to.
okay, I know what this is now. Okay, so last year we did we did a couple charity streams for Extra Life. Um, and for one of those streams, I did a maid cafe where I had like physical prints of my former jellyfish form, like sitting under an omurice, like a
Oh
little
my
egg.
gosh.
And I was selling signed prints of that, and the proceeds were going to charity. And I think I was signing them initially with a red Sharpie to be like, "Oh, it's the red Sharpie is kind of like ketchup." And I think at some point somebody went, "Can you actually sign
Sign
my
in
print
ketchup.
in ketchup?" So I actually went to my fridge and I got the ketchup bottle,
I guess we're just
and
finger painting, or did you use a brush?
I pulled out a paintbrush.
Okay.
We used ketchup as our new medium, and I painted 3 prints where I actually drew on them with the ketchup, and
So did it stick and, dry in a way that it was still shippable, I guess?
Okay, so what I had to do was I had to very carefully put those in my fridge for a few days. There were 3 of them, and so I was
To
taking
let
up,
them
like, a
sort of
whole shelf in my fridge, and I felt so bad for my housemates because I was taking up all that space, and
Please
I think
understand it's for charity.
it's for charity, like, it's for, kids who need the
It's for a
money.
good cause, I swear.
Please understand, I'm not crazy, it's for a good cause. But yeah, I had that in my fridge for, like, 3 days, and then one of them ended up going across the world to Denmark, and I was so
Gosh.
scared. I was so scared that, like, ants would be crawling all over it, and, like, someone in customs somewhere would be like, "Who is this Cheri Fish girl? Like, what is she doing? What kind of crime is she committing across these
Like, at
borders?" But
point, is it even distinguishable as ketchup, or could it, at that point, just look like dried paint?
it it I think it was still pretty distinguishable as ketchup because, like, the dried up ketchup, you can kind of see, like, little bits of, like, the tomato and, like, the constituents of it.
Oh, wow, so you're using really nice ketchup if there's actually the bits of tomato and it's not, just the random
Yeah,
high-end,
yeah.
smooth
Mhm.
sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you could you can tell that it was ketchup for sure.
Gosh, that's
I
incredible.
think yeah, I think that would be the wildest thing that chat has steered our stream towards,
I'm
but it was for a good cause.
Absolutely. I'm always looking for new ideas for my own charity stream that I am going to be
Mm.
doing a second anniversary one, and you're gonna be invited to that, so, look forward to that, um,
Yes.
for my second
Mm.
anniversary, which is gonna be this January, that, just like last year, that I'm gonna invite all my guests back, and last year, I was fortunate enough to have 29 guests over the 2 days, and hoping to get even more this year, and I'm
Wow.
just already starting to think, all right, what things worked last year, what things didn't, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I will specifically advertise, donate this amount, and I will sign something in
Mhm.
ketchup, but
Mhm.
well, also I just don't have prints or art or anything of that nature to sell anyways, but that's I'm gonna start thinking along those lines of what's
Mhm.
something that I might already do that I can just change either the
Yeah.
medium or something, or the
Mhm.
anything from the color or the material, I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's a very creative thing that you can now actually take for your own charity streams and just do in the future, and maybe it's not
Mhm.
ketchup, but all right, donate certain amount for a print, and then for extra amount of
Mhm.
donation, I will sign it in some variety of materials.
Yes. Mhm, mhm. I'm just wondering what other kind of materials. What have we got in the fridge? Hmm.
Yeah.
That's so exciting though. That's so exciting. But it's also a lot of work. So it's incredible cuz I have a hard time even feeling like I can sufficiently prepare for like a collaboration with a single other person on my stream. So for you to be able to coordinate something that big, that's so incredible.
And for whatever reason, that's just sort of been my strong suit, and that's sort of how VTuber Talk came
Mm.
about anyways, is that in late 2020 and 2021 that I
Mhm.
had a lot of free time because, one thing that I did slash now once again do is event work on weekends, and it's not every weekend, but,
Mhm.
I'll go to conventions with relative frequency, and
Mhm.
obviously in 2020 and 2021, conventions weren't happening, so my weekends
Yeah.
were always free, and
Mhm.
I just like talking to people. Surprise, surprise, the talk show host likes talking to people, and it
Mhm.
was the type of thing that for me, organizing a show like this isn't that difficult, and yes, there's
Mhm.
definitely a lot more work involved when you're getting 29 people involved over a course of 24 hours, that, I was still able to keep it to a pretty manageable level for me, just through a
Mhm.
couple different pieces of organization, and, uh, this year I'm looking forward to it being hopefully even smoother because there were a couple
Mhm.
bumps last year, but that being the first time, I thought it went pretty well, and it was certainly a learning experience for me. For you
Mhm.
on your charity stream, is there anything that you felt went particularly well, or that you realized, okay, next time around, I want to change this?
Ooh. Hmm. I think very recently I started trying something new that kind of caters to the boomer in me who grew up with like, oh my god, let's do this BuzzFeed quiz and figure out what Disney princess we are. Or like
Mm,
learn about each other in like these weird kooky ways. And so recently I've been trying to play around with that as like a new form of stream. I really enjoy trying out like new types of streams with my audience and just kind of seeing how people engage with it. So I totally get what you mean in terms of like trying to look back and figuring out like where to improve it and kind of like troubleshoot it. It's really a fun part of the creative process. You can probably relate to.
yeah, for sure. That I
Mhm.
did some tier lists with folks
Yes.
last year, and I think that's
Mhm.
something I'll probably do again. But I didn't do any quizzes now that I think about it, and I think
Mhm.
that could be a really good one. So I'll probably end up adding that
Mhm.
one to the list.
Mhm.
So, which Disney princess were you?
Which does I feel like I usually end up getting Ariel,
I
very on
can't
brand.
imagine why. I can't possibly imagine why.
Surprise, surprise. Inconceivable, right?
No, no, that's an entirely different princess
Mhm.
movie.
Mhm. But yeah, I also did tier lists for the first time, I think on that stream as well. And like I prior to that, I was like, I have no idea how to do this in an interactive and fun way. But I find that most of the times when I just put something on the stream, chat just gets into it and it kind of just works out. So I feel really blessed in that regard
Mm,
that my community is just so down to do whatever I put
yeah,
on the screen.
I feel like as long as the streamer is excited and having a good time, that
Mhm.
chat's generally going to be along for the ride.
Mhm. Oh, speaking of tier lists, my mod Epsilon actually during that stream found a really, really unexpectedly fun tier list where we tiered the different unknown Pokemon, like the different letters
Oh,
of the
yeah.
alphabet. And that was so unexpectedly fun, and people got so into it. That could be a fun one for you too, maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly because I obviously we are both into Pokemon. I feel
Yes.
like I would just be too liable to sort of put all of them in A, that I don't think that any of them are particularly bad. That I think
Mhm.
they were just, pretty consistent. There's one or two that I'd say, all right, this one's a little bit weird, but
Mhm.
uh I don't know if I'd be able to actually, have any really hot takes on any of those, and I think that's half the fun of it.
See, that's what I thought too, and then I discovered that I really like round and symmetrical shapes.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
you might be surprised in what you learn about yourself with
Mm,
chat's input and under a little bit of pressure?
I'm gonna have to keep that one in mind then, or maybe even just for if you're able to come on, or I'll have whoever's
Mhm.
on at that time help out, and we'll have some fun with that. That I remember
Mhm.
we had Strawberry. Actually, no, wait. It was Straub and Phoebe, so it was actually the
Mhm.
Fua block. um,
Yeah!
that we had a tier list for different shades of pink.
That is so fitting.
Because for the two of them, if you know Straub and Phoebe, they are both very
Mhm.
pink.
Yes, just a little bit. Mhm. How did that turn out?
It was good actually. That I had found the tier list beforehand. That this was not one I made myself, so
Mhm.
I was pretty comfortable, and it was just very easy to bring up. And there was a good, like 25, 30 shades of pink. And there were a couple where we were like, no, we don't like this one. There was this one really sort of dark burnt color that almost looked like brown, which was, I think,
Mhm.
our lowest one. But then we had the hot neon pink, which was instant S tier. So it was a good time.
I love that, that's amazing.
Were there any other tier lists that really stuck out to you that were really fun to fill out?
Hmm. I did I tiered Pokemon based on their general roundness.
My gosh. Was
And
this one that you found, or did you make this one yourself?
I think this was one that, this was another one that Epsilon threw at me.
Okay, Epsilon, if you
Um
can send me the link to these, because like Pokemon roundness, this That's such a good spin.
Right? It really is. I learned that round and soft is an important criteria for me.
Mm.
Round and rock or metal, not so much it, but round and squishy and soft, very S tier.
I hope that Sfeel was on here and S tier for Sfeel.
Yes. Oh, of course. Of course. We love Spiel.
Yeah. So, obviously, we've hopped on and off Pokemon here a little bit. Might as well just to actually focus in on this. You and I are both very big Pokemon fans. I've played since first gen. What was
Mm.
your entry to the Pokemon series?
I think the first game that I played was Gold. Yeah, I think Gold was the first game that I played, but Pokemon was also just the thing that I like ran excitedly home after school to watch
Mhm.
every single
Yep, yep,
day.
yep, yep.
Yeah, so it was like the after school show, but as far as the games, it was Gold. I remember that almost tacky little cartridge that was
Yeah,
like
that they were the metallic
yeah,
and shiny ones that my
yeah,
first the
uh-huh.
first video game I ever owned actually was Pokemon Yellow, which I got for my 7th
Oh,
birthday.
uh-huh,
That I was a little late to getting the game,
uh-huh,
which is why I got Yellow, not Red or Blue.
uh-huh.
Um, but I had Silver version, and I got that
Mhm,
really, really close to launch. And
mhm,
while I enjoyed Yellow, Silver was the one that I just
mhm.
was head over heels for. I put over 200 hours into that game. I adored second generation, and it was just
Mhm.
that was the one where even though it wasn't my first, that's where I truly, truly fell in love with the series.
Mhm. Yeah, those games were super, super fun. I started off with Gold, and then I actually went backwards and I played Yellow. And I think I felt very much kind of the same way. I was like, I think second gen is where my heart is.
Yeah, there was a
Mm.
lot of really big improvements on there that you had, the night and day cycle, you had held items,
Yes.
berries,
Mhm.
there was Pokemon breeding, there were
Mhm,
just so many different
mhm.
things, and obviously, the fact that you could go back to Kanto was
Yeah.
enormous, and even if Kanto was, a little bit bare bones, that the
Mhm.
mere fact that you could actually go back to those places and,
Mhm.
just have those memories and see the aftermath of the initial games, and then, obviously,
Mhm.
the battle with Red, which even if you know it's there, that
Mhm, mhm.
it's such a climactic battle, and it's so cool because it feels like you're
Yeah.
facing the ghost of yourself.
Kind
Because
of,
if you
yeah.
played through the original, that you either feel like you're facing the ghost of yourself or that you're facing Ash
Mhm.
from the anime, and either way, that is such an epic moment.
It is, it really is. I have a question for you
Mm.
actually on this train of thought. Because we're talking like old games. Like I think Gold was it technically Game Boy or Game Boy Color?
That was Game Boy Color.
That was did you know I just the other day fell down the rabbit hole of like custom modded Game Boy Colors on Etsy, and I discovered that there's
Ooh.
whole world of people who make these beautiful custom mods of Game Boy Colors where they add like backlighting into the screen, and then there's
Oh.
so
Oh,
many
so we're
like
not even just talking that they, give a literal fresh coat of paint and make it look nice, that they have
uh
actually modded the hardware to have backlighting and
yeah,
other things. That's cool. I'm not
yeah,
shocked to hear that, but I've
uh-huh.
never seen that before. That's really neat.
Yeah, I think every day I've been waking up and going on Etsy and just looking at custom modded Game Boy Colors, and like I'm amazed. Like it's a whole art form. Like people like adjust the hardware, and then I'm pretty sure what they do is they also like resin cast the buttons as well, and so like those will
Ooh.
light up, and then there's like different almost like skins on the console itself that are super artistic and cool, and I love that because I remember I don't know if this was also you as a kid, but I remember like being in my bed past my bedtime and having one of those stinky dinky little like coil lights that you would
Yep.
attach.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah,
And just if you were playing in the back of the car, desperately hoping that whatever road you were driving on had streetlights.
yes, yes. And like the little light basically just gave you like a tiny little radius, like a little circle on your screen that you
Mhm.
can actually see. So it's pretty effectively useless. So
Yep,
the
yep.
child in me was so excited to discover this rabbit hole of like the custom modding world of Game Boy Colors.
Seriously, the Game Boy Advance SP, which was the first Nintendo handheld that had the backlight, that was game changing, literally and
Yes.
figuratively, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. We've come a long way since then.
Oh yeah, Mr. Indigo in the chat saying that they used a handheld torch under the bed sheet, so they had to play one handed.
Oh my gosh, a torch!
I assume that being flashlight.
Ah, I see,
Yeah,
I see.
memory serves, torch. That's a sort of British English term for it.
That makes sense.
I certainly hope
That's
a young child is not using an actual flaming torch under their bed sheets because that would set it on fire very quickly.
right, right. Having to very carefully hold like the blanket at arm's length to make sure nothing can. But even that, if that's not hard mode, if that's not playing handheld on hard mode, I don't know what is. Oh my goodness. I'm glad we all have these memories though of staying up past our bedtime with the worst
Oh yeah,
technology.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
Just for me, I have always been a big fan of video game music, and
Ah,
for whatever reason, I just have these vivid memories of for Pokemon and for a lot of different games that I would literally just go to levels that I enjoyed and put the Game Boy up
ah,
to my ear and listen to it. And
yeah.
because
Mhm.
this was going to be in the days where you had, CD players and everything,
Mhm.
but video game soundtracks were not,
Yeah.
really published anywhere, and we weren't at the point where there were MP3 downloads yet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so for me, it was just finding these levels and that I would listen to them on loop for ages.
Speaking of like video game music though, I earlier this year, like I would often talk to chat about how like, man, I wish there was a Final Fantasy like symphony
There
concert. Like
is.
I
There's
would so
been.
go to that. Yeah, and I have tickets to go see it in November now.
Yay! Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited, but it's also like the little kid in me is so excited that, that is a thing that exists that I
Mhm.
can go to
Yeah,
and
no, it's actually
enjoy.
existed for a while that the Distant Worlds concert
Mhm.
series has been a thing for at this point, I think like 15 years now that I think about it. That
But
I've
yeah.
been to a couple of those. Also, Video Games Live, which is obviously broader. That it's not just Final Fantasy stuff, but
Uh-huh.
they do have some Final Fantasy. That they
Mhm.
have this rock version of One Winged Angel, like the Advent Children arrangement,
Whoa!
basically.
Aw, that's so cool. Oh, I love Advent Children.
Yeah, we were actually talking about Final Fantasy VII before
Yes.
we started the show because you've been playing that recently. Like you were playing it last night. I was lurking in chat.
Yes.
We I showed you my favorite video reaction from the Final Fantasy VII remake announcement, which was one done by
Mhm.
Game Trailers, and it was these four folks in this relatively professional-looking broadcast room,
Mhm.
and just they're all freaking out. One of them physically gets out of their seat and then, like, crouches down, then climbs up on his chair and is actually standing on his chair in one point, and just
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah, he went on a journey, and as the viewer, we went on the journey with him as he
yes.
slowly ascended, like, from the ground onto the chair towards the ceiling.
Yeah,
Mm.
he was just a kid on Christmas morning. You could tell that this was
Mhm.
not some overreaction for the camera, that they were actually beside themselves.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm. Oh, to feel that way. I hope we all feel
Mhm.
that way about something in our lives.
Yes, indeed. Uh,
Mhm,
we were having a little bit of trouble though last night with the remake. That there was this particular fight
mhm.
where there were several enemies, but also these flamethrower turrets, basically, and
Yes.
the other party members just kept wanting to run into the fray and sort of abandon all safety and be right in the way of these flamethrowers.
Mhm, mhm. I think they were feeling a little chilly in that metal cellar, and they just were going
Yeah,
towards
I
the
I
light
guess so.
supplies. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that game has been so boggling because it's so like cinematically beautiful, but also it's probably like mechanically, it feels like the hardest game I've ever played. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it. It's really gorgeous. I can see why chat was recommending that game to me so much because I hadn't played the original prior, and we were talking about this a little bit before the stream about how like we've been well aware of like the renown and the respect that the game gets. But yeah, I had never played the original before, and I kind of want to go back and play it just to compare the experiences. But yeah, I've been loving Final Fantasy VII so much.
Mm, So hopping back to the Distant Worlds concert, so
Yeah.
I know obviously you're playing FF7. I know
Mhm.
Final Fantasy X is your favorite. Are there any pieces either from that game or from the franchise in general that you're hoping to hear at the concert?
Ooh, To Xanarkand is the song that opens
Mm,
up
yep,
Final Fantasy X when
yep.
you, like, first start, and,
I
that
would
song
say
is
that's one of
awesome.
the best known piano pieces in video game music, not just in Final Fantasy,
Uh-huh.
but that it's not even that complex a piece musically,
Mhm,
that it's just
mhm.
very slow, very beautiful, but it's become so iconic, really,
Yeah.
and that it's one that I know a lot of people have that
Mhm.
emotional resonance with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know, it kind of just gets at your heartstrings.
Mhm,
I feel
mhm.
like it's like the video game equivalent of, that one song by Yuruma that was made popular by Twilight. I think it's like River Flows in You or
Mm,
something. It's like that, but for video games. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear that one in particular. Mhm.
my
I like
favorite
the Go ahead, go ahead.
my favorite Distant Worlds arrangement is the Maria and Draco opera from Final Fantasy VI. I've not even played Final Fantasy VI, but it's an operatic piece in 3 movements, and
Ooh.
it has just a lot of variation of there's these sort of march-like movements,
Mhm.
there is a waltz movement, and then the ending is just it hits very, very powerfully. I will send you actually a video of that particular arrangement after the show, and like I said, it gives me chills every time.
I would love that. I also love the feeling of like, I've never played this before, so I kind of have no idea what it's about, but it
Mhm.
makes me feel things. I don't know why, but I just like it. I feel like that's a whole mood.
Yeah, just and when you're in a big concert hall with a bunch of
Mhm.
others, that it is an entirely different experience as well, because
Mhm.
for the ones where you do recognize and you have that shared experience, that a
Mhm.
it's so cool to sort of glance around and see the excitement on everyone else's face, and that you're all sort of having these simultaneous flashbacks, because one of the things that sets video game music apart from something like movie music is that when you're
Mhm.
watching movies and listening to movie soundtracks, you're listening to the soundtrack of someone else's life, of whoever the main character in the film is. But when
Mhm.
you're listening to game music, you're listening to the soundtrack of your life. And even if it's not a RPG insert type of thing, that,
Mhm.
that you're playing Cloud, but at the same time, you are playing as Cloud and you have that deeper emotional connection than
Mhm.
you would have whereas, if it's Star Wars, that you are watching Luke Skywalker or whatever,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
difference makes the music hit harder, I believe.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think one of the lines that a lot of people take out of Final Fantasy X in particular is a line where Titus is kind of like looking at the horizon of Xanakin and saying like, "Listen to my story. Like this is my story."
Mhm, mhm.
I think that kind of hits on that feeling of how like you as the player kind of are that character and like are a part of that universe, and like in a way it's also kind of your story as well. So
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's a really cool component of video games for sure.
and even if you haven't played that particular game, that when you're
Mhm.
in the concert hall with so many others who have, that you sort of just feed
Mhm.
off of that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For
I'm
sure.
very excited for you. You're gonna have a good time.
Me too. I'm gonna cry so much.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm gonna feel so many things, and like some of the songs for you where you don't know them but you love them and feel them anyway. That's gonna be me
Mhm,
too.
mhm.
I'm really excited for that.
If memory serves, you had said that 10 was your favorite from the franchise?
Yeah, I mean, up to date, technically 10 was the first Final Fantasy that I played, and I've played the first 45 minutes of 8 over and over
Okay, a couple of
because
questions here.
yeah.
I'll start with, why have you replayed the first 45 minutes over and over? Because I can understand, all right, I played the first 45 minutes and then dropped it because I didn't like it, or just I dropped it and didn't get a chance to get around to it. But the fact that it's been multiple times, why multiple times?
So I'm happy to say that I have that game now. I've purchased that game and it's on my Switch, so I hope to play it in full one day. But as a kid, I had only the game, only a PlayStation, and no memory card. And I couldn't, for the life of me, get my parents to buy me a memory
Memory
card.
card, so you couldn't save the game, so you had to just keep
Yeah.
playing
The
there you
first
go.
45 minutes over and over again. And my parents are just like, that makes no sense. Like, you have the game, just play it. And I'm sitting here like, you don't
No, no,
understand. I
no.
can't
Oh,
progress.
no. Oh, no.
So I played the first 45 minutes of Final Fantasy VIII. And then outside of that, luckily, when I got a PlayStation 2, I was able to convince them to get me a memory card, or it came with a memory card, perhaps, and
Mhm.
so they didn't buy it for
There you
me.
go, there you go.
Yeah, so I played 10, and then I played some of 8, and then I played 10 too, and now I'm playing 7. But I've also watched Advent Children, um, and there was a while where I was really into, I think the videos were by Monty Oom. It was like this really cool series where he just did like these fight sequences between
Mm.
characters in Final Fantasy. I think it was called Dead Fantasy is what the
Yep.
series was
Yeah,
called.
because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Montium is a name that I am quite familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
was a animator of great renown, was
Mhm,
with
mhm.
Rooster Teeth Productions. He is
Yes.
the creator of the, web series Ruby, RWBY.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
Sadly passed several years
Yeah.
back. Just, he
Mhm.
was going in for what was supposed to be a routine surgery and had a freak allergic reaction
Mhm.
to, I think it was just a sedative, and he
Yeah.
sadly did not make it.
Mhm.
But he was immensely talented. The fight
Yeah.
scenes that he did for Dead Fantasy and for
Mhm.
Ruby are just, for their time, they were
Yeah.
next level, that nobody could do fight scenes like him. And even to this
Mhm.
day, while folks have improved and just, animators have improved, it's the type of thing that
Mhm.
his style still stands
Yeah.
out. And just the flourish and flair
Mhm.
that he put into everything, it was so
Mhm.
cool. And yeah, definitely gone far too soon, but it's very nice
Yeah.
that his legacy has absolutely endured.
He's made a big impact on a lot of people through his work, so definitely a legacy that has endured. But
Mhm.
yeah, through his works, and I think a little bit, I played Kingdom Hearts 1 as well, and there's like bits and pieces of characters from Final Fantasy in there. So even though I
Yeah.
haven't played that many games, I feel kind of like quite attached to the
Yeah.
franchise as a whole because of that.
And I've never actually finished a Final Fantasy game. That I had Final Fantasy 3 for the DS, but as
Aw.
it turns out, Final Fantasy 3 has one of the most difficult final boss sequences in the
Really?
entire series, in that the final boss sequence is, I think, 5 or 6 different boss fights
Oh gosh.
that you can't save between.
No.
And I was able to get to, like, the 3rd boss, and just, I knew, yes, I could take time and grind up all my characters to be able to beat this, but
Mhm.
at that point, I didn't have the motivation that,
Mhm.
for me, when I play games, if I need to spend 10 hours or 5 hours grinding in
Mhm.
order to beat the final boss, you've lost me. That
Yeah.
I think in game design, I think it's not a problem to say, all right, you're going to have to grind a little bit and that you need to make sure
Mhm.
that you're leveled up and that you should
Mhm.
spend time, between areas leveling up. That's totally all right. That's part
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
most RPG games process.
Mhm.
But if I feel like I'm on par with the bosses up until the final boss, and then you just throw something that says, actually, if you want to beat this final boss, you're going to have to now, go up 15 levels all of a
Mhm.
sudden,
Mhm.
I I just sort of bashed my head against the wall a couple times, tried to get it, and then looked up online, was like, "Is there a strategy?" And then when
Uh-huh.
I found out, "Oh, wait, there's still 2 more bosses after that," that's when I said, "Okay, I'm done here."
Uh-huh, uh-huh. I think I experienced that while playing Final Fantasy X on stream. I think playing games on stream has been uniquely challenging because I am the kind of player like off stream who would normally kind of just like grind a lot to be able to get through things easily. But that doesn't make for, the best kind of content when you're live.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And so like I've had to actually get good games, I guess you could say. I've had to get good and actually like be able to try and like fight these bosses without just getting the 15 levels ahead. And so I think that's probably a part of why like some games feel a lot harder to me than I remember
Mhm.
them being. But chat has also been like super supportive and just going like, yeah, like you can do this. You got this while I'm like screaming my head off
Yep. Mr.
in
Indigo
legitimate fear.
Mr. Indigo says you can do a just chatting style stream while grinding,
Mm,
you could do that, or what you could do is
mm.
during one of your work streams that instead of, having the keyboard, that you're
Uh-huh.
holding the controller. Don't even show the screen. Don't show that you're actually running, and you can just be
Uh-huh.
doing that type of normal stream and be doing the
Oh my
grinding, but
god.
it feels like one of your work streams.
I hadn't thought about that. It could be like controller ASMR.
Mhm, mhm.
That's amazing. Why haven't I thought of that actually? Because I don't know about you, but I just love the clicky sounds
Oh,
that a
yeah.
controller
There is
makes, like,
something
so much.
viscerally satisfying
Yes.
about either a clicking controller when it's one that's supposed to,
Uh-huh.
or, a nice keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that sound. I'll have to write that one down.
'Cause I think that could just be a fun variation that I've seen folks do, you know, grinding level up streams where it's effectively just chatting and that they're,
Uh-huh.
going around. But the fact that you in particular could do that twist and, like I said, not even show the gameplay, just,
Uh-huh.
just have the camera where it always is, but instead of the keyboard, it's a controller.
I love that. That's so fun. Agenda of the day, get Cloud to level 90. Don't cry next time I see Sephiroth.
Uh,
Because Sephiroth, oh my gosh. I even though didn't play the game as a kid, like I used to love watching video game AMVs, like when I was in middle
mhm.
school, high school, and so I'd always come across like terrifying clips of even just old Sephiroth,
Oh, yeah,
like
that
with the
if you
song.
that like I said, I didn't play. You if you were a gamer in any
Uh-huh.
capacity, it didn't matter what type of gamer you were, you knew who
Mhm.
Sephiroth was.
Mhm.
Don't ask anyone
Yep.
to name any other final boss from any other Final Fantasy, people know Sephiroth.
Yeah. He was that guy, huh?
He was that guy that just the design, the music that, was
Mhm.
mentioned in the chat, Nobuo Uematsu, yes, the
Yeah.
Beethoven
Mhm.
of video game music, that just one of
Mhm.
the greatest game composers in the
Mhm.
industry. Uh, I don't wanna get your hopes up too much, Cherry, but I will say he occasionally appears at Distant Worlds concerts. I would say he probably I wouldn't get your hopes up, in particular because he's appeared at significantly fewer lately because he is,
Mm.
I believe, in his late 80s now. Um, so I wouldn't anticipate it, but I know he's
Mhm.
done some appearances.
Mhm. It's not statistically improbable.
Mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
But just One
But
Winged Angel, ugh,
yeah,
it
that
is
song.
such an incredible piece.
It is. It's I almost can't understand it because that song genuinely terrifies me, but it's also just so iconic that I
Mhm.
can't not respect it and appreciate it at the same time. I feel like the only other song that has made me feel that way is that one song in Squid Game, if you've ever watched it, that comes on when they're like wandering through the hallways. There's like really eerie vocalizations and stuff that happened during that. Because I remember one time when it was really popular, I was driving home from work, and for whatever reason, a DJ on the radio decided to remix that really eerie, terrifying
Huh.
soundtrack.
I
It's like a pop hit on the radio, and I remember like, oh my gosh, I feel like my palms are getting sweaty on the steering wheel because I wasn't expecting to hear this boss battle music all of a sudden on the way home from work.
I never
So yeah.
actually saw Squid Games that,
Mm.
for whatever reason that like, I watch a ton of anime, and
Uh-huh.
I feel like that Squid Games made me want to find a way that it's such an anime-esque show
And
that
yeah, it really is.
and obviously death games have been done
Mhm,
both
mhm,
animated and non-animated. You have the Hunger
mhm,
Games. In terms of some old anime, KG Ultimate Gambler has a lot of parallels to
mhm,
Squid Games.
mhm, mhm,
And I just, for whatever reason, didn't feel super compelled to see it. That
mhm,
I felt like I felt like I had seen where it was going, the type of things that it had. That I
mhm,
looked up the Wikipedia synopses for the episodes,
mhm,
so I
mhm.
know what happens.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really cool, and I'm glad that so many people love the series. That even if
Mhm, mhm,
I'm not the type to enjoy something, I always like when content comes out and that others enjoy it. I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum. But
mhm,
that was one
mhm,
that I
mhm.
didn't see. But now I'm going to have to look up specifically the soundtrack.
Yes, there's one song on there. There are two songs in this world that strike fear immediately into my heart. One of them is One Winged Angel, and the other one is the song from Squid Game. I think it'll be pretty easy to recognize when you hear it because it just has final boss energy and it's just very very eerie. But yeah, I totally know what you mean by like not feeling compelled to watch it because you were already familiar with it through anime. For me, it was kind of like the opposite because that's not generally a genre that I watch in anime.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of cool. I know some people had like grievances about like the overlap and how like Squid Game became like the mainstream thing
What?
that mm,
Simpsons did it. Everything's been done before.
yeah. But it's kind of cool to see like something that was originally like more niche to the anime community suddenly
Yeah,
get
finally,
recognized by a
yeah,
larger audience.
that there were a couple of articles that came out shortly after the release of Squid Games that were along the
Mhm.
lines of, if you like Squid Games, check out these anime, and that's always
Yeah.
cool because, all right, even if something that is similar comes out, that it can then become
Mhm.
that gateway, that bridge to all this other
Yeah.
content, and anything that's going to
Yeah.
get more folks, into anime or that other niche stuff is always going to
Yeah.
be a good thing.
Mhm,
Also,
mhm.
you mentioned video game AMVs, and now I'm thinking, I sure hope if it hasn't been done already, that somebody out there is going to do an AMV with that Squid Game music for Splatoon.
Oh my gosh, wait, I haven't thought about that. There must be.
I feel
If
like
not
it's such low hanging fruit. I
if
can't be the
not,
first
maybe
person to
we're
think
the
of
ones
this.
that need to do it. We need to, like, download what is it? Like, Windows Movie
Yeah,
Maker?
oh gosh.
I was that person on the internet before. I used to use, like, Windows
Really?
Movie.
Okay, because I was wondering that, AMVs are a thing that I know a lot of folks have watched, but
Uh-huh.
when you brought that up sort of out of the blue, I was like, Cheri, have you
Mhm.
made AMVs? And the
Oh.
answer is yes, apparently. So obviously, I don't want you to dox yourself for whatever old accounts you might have done, but uh, for whatever level of discussion that you are comfortable with, I'd love
Mhm.
to know your history as an AMV creator.
Okay, I just looked it up to see. I think my most popular AMV is sitting at 119,000 views right
Holy
now.
cow! Okay.
I I only made a few. I think I only see like 3, on this channel, and like the other ones don't have
Did
that
you ever
many
submit
views.
things to conventions?
I did not. I did not. Was that a thing like way back then? I found out
Oh
about
yeah,
that more
AMV
recently.
contests have been a thing for decades.
I found out like in the past, probably like within the past 5 years, I think that that's a thing at anime conventions. And obviously, like the stuff that people submit are like
Oh yeah,
way
it's
more,
crazy the things that,
yeah,
and you can
compared to
see
what I was
over
doing.
time that 20 years ago, the level of complexity and
Mhm,
polish on AMV is going to be very, very
mhm,
different than the things you see now. Because
mhm,
as with any medium, that as people get more experience and as the community gets more
mhm,
experience at large, that the skill level gets pushed higher and
mhm.
higher, and the stuff that would win the AMV contests even 10 years ago would not be able to win or even place today
Yeah.
because people are
Mhm.
now just, you know, better than ever. And there are some folks who really have grown up with it. And
Yeah.
it's super cool to see. But even if you're not competitive level, quote unquote, that's really, really neat. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I don't want you to potentially dox yourself by making it that people can find your old videos, but are you comfortable
Mhm.
saying, even if not the music you put to it, what
Uh,
shows you made AMVs for?
it was it they were at Final Fantasy X.
Okay, so it was FF10.
Surprise! Who could have seen it coming, right? I remember working on some for Kingdom Hearts too, but I don't think I ever published those. But oh, the hours I spent just like downloading and admiring cutscenes from those two games
Were your
because they
AMVs,
were,
were
yeah,
they
yeah.
about the game as a whole? So were you sort of going through the major story beats? Did you have a focus on certain characters?
It was I would usually pick a song, and then I would try to take clips from the games to fit the narrative of the song.
Okay, so you sort of, so I'm looking at it the wrong direction, that it wasn't
Mhm.
how did you fit the music to the game, it was how you fit the game to the music.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would try to find songs that kind of, like, suited the characters or, like, the
Mm,
universe, and that I would retrofit the
gotcha.
game to the song.
Uh, that's a totally logical line of thinking
Mm.
there.
Mhm, mhm. But yeah, maybe we need to make the Splatoon Squid Game crossover that you talked about. Bring back some
Another one,
classic
like
tunes.
after the show, I'm gonna have to just go to YouTube and look things up. Like I said, I I have to believe I am not the first person to think of this.
Yeah, I would be very surprised. There are probably some very well-produced crossovers
Mm,
in that realm, especially with recently everyone's been super into Splatoon, so
yeah, because Splatoon 3 came out, I think 2 3 weeks ago at
mhm.
this point, so it's still top of mind for a lot of
Yeah.
folks. I know there was a Splatfest this week,
Yes.
so a whole bunch of people have been playing that. I think it was like Team Gear, Team Gun, and Team Fun or something like that.
Mhm. I know
So
TV joined Team Grub. Mhm.
uh, yeah, Splatoon's been a fun one to see people really fall in love with because that's one of Nintendo's newer original franchises. That
Yeah.
Splatoon 1 came out and it had
Mhm.
to have been, it was 2013 or 14. I'm
Mhm.
blanking on which it was, but it was one of those two. Um, yeah, and it's been really cool to see that become a major pillar, really, of
Yeah.
their original releases. And now, we have three that the Inklings are in Smash. So
Mhm.
uh, I wonder where they will go with it next because once you get to the third installment for any franchise, that's usually where they
Mhm.
sort of finish either their first arc or where
Mhm.
it starts to get to the point that you need to really begin to push things in different directions to keep it from getting stale.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure that Turf Wars will remain a pillar mainstay of
Mhm.
Splatoon gameplay permanently. That is its thing, and it's just going to be the
Mhm.
question of 3, 4, 5 years down the line, would they just make Splatoon 4 and have a story mode and then Turf Wars, and is that
Mhm.
enough? Because it could be, but
Mhm.
at the same time, would they start finding other different game modes?
Yeah. I think yeah, it's an interesting thought, right? Because I think young me I think young me would find it hard to believe somehow that like Pokemon, for example, is still pretty relevant and like ever changing and ever
Mhm.
growing. And like it's been really nice to see that. So it'd be really cool to see if like Splatoon can have that same kind of longevity a few years down the line, like you said.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hopping back to Pokemon, that obviously we are eagerly all awaiting the release of Gen 9 for
Yes.
Scarlet Violet, and just
Mhm.
we've been getting that slow but steady drip feed of information from the Pokemon
Mhm.
Company. There was a new trailer like 2-ish weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
and we've seen the villain team for this time around, which is basically the schoolyard bullies.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm really curious for a, just open world is such a broad term. And it's
Yeah.
that question of what does open world mean to a
Mm.
mainline Pokemon game? Because did you play Pokemon Legends Arceus?
I did not, but I saw a lot of people playing it
I
and kind of what
highly
it looked
recommend it.
like.
That
Yeah.
I had not fallen into a game so quickly and so deeply for a long time that
Um,
I got it on release day and was cautiously optimistic that in general I
mhm,
wanted to support the game because this is them trying something new and different. I figured, all right,
uh,
even if it wasn't stellar, that it would still be
mhm,
a good time at minimum, and
mhm,
that I wanted to sort of uh, use my dollar to vote there in terms of saying yes, I want to see one
mhm,
company taking risks and pushing things in these different directions, and it just, like I said, I hoped it would be good. It was
mhm,
phenomenal. I'm not gonna call it
mhm,
perfect, but it was just such a fun core loop. The catching was so satisfying. The story
mhm,
was good. The environment was vast, and it wasn't super complex, but it was just so
mhm,
satisfying.
mhm. It's cool to see it evolve towards that direction. I will make a note of that.
Mhm.
Would you if they released a second one, a sequel, would you get down on your knees and then slowly rise up onto your chair
Depending on
towards
how
the
it was
ceiling?
done, maybe. That I've said before, I think they can do other Pokemon Legends games, not
Mm,
necessarily a direct sequel to
mhm,
Legends Arceus, but the whole concept there was that you were seeing old Sinnoh, so fourth
mhm,
gen region.
mhm.
You could make Pokemon Legends Celebi in old Johto. You can make Pokemon Legends Mew in old Kanto. That's what I want to see.
I see. Oh, that would be really, really interesting, actually. Mm. How have you felt about what you've seen for I feel bad. There's a joke on my channel because I always forget the name of the other game, so I just call it Violet and not Violet. Like,
Yeah,
I can't wait
Scarlet
for
Violet.
Pokemon Violet and not Violet to come out.
Well, I can tell
Scarlet.
which one you're getting at least.
Oh, is it that obvious? But yeah, how have you felt about it so far? All I can say is that I will fight the world for Fuecoco. That
Oh
stinky
my gosh,
little
yes.
baby looks
Yeah.
so precious.
Like, I am a very what's the best way to phrase this? That I'm a very passionate Pokemon fan, that it has been a big part of my life. I deeply
Mm,
enjoy the series, but I'm a very casual person
ah,
in terms of what I expect from the series. That
mm,
I'm not going to be the type to really, go in and criticize and be like, "Oh, this game really messed up and whatnot."
mhm,
Absolutely, some Pokemon games have been better than others. No question about that.
mhm,
And were there certain creative decisions and mechanical decisions that I didn't like in certain games? Yeah, sure. But at the same time, I just go into every generation saying, I'm going to have a good time. I know I'm going to have a
mhm,
good time. And whether it's a good time, a great time, or one of the best
mhm,
games of all time, I know that they're going to at least have a baseline enough product that it's going to
mhm,
be worth the price of the game, and then it's just gravy from there. So
mhm.
I'm I'm watching the Scarlet Violet stuff and just nodding, saying, "Yeah, it's a Pokemon game. Great, awesome. I'm looking forward to playing it." Uh,
Mhm.
they have the little crystal mechanics. Like, cool, sure, whatever. I'm just
Mm,
rolling with it
mhm.
basically. What about you?
That's a good mindset though. It's kind of like a I'm just happy to be here and like I'm gonna find the things to enjoy because someone worked hard on this, you know?
Yeah.
There was a lot of heart and work that went into it. And I feel like people kind of lose sight of that sometimes. And it's really easy to just like try to find the things that you don't like and how that overshadows, the parts that are good. So I feel like that's a really good mindset to
Mhm.
approach it with. Um I love Flay Coco. I think it's been a long time since a Pokemon design has hit me the same way that Flay Coco's design has for
It's
some
just this
reason.
little happy pepper dragon.
Yeah, with like one little tooth and like the widest grin that you've ever seen. It's like I want what Flay Coco has, you know? But I'm excited for some pseudo motorcycle riding,
Yeah,
I guess.
the thing that gets me is given the level of prominence that they are showing for the vehicles that the legendaries can transform
Mhm.
into, this
Mhm.
indicates that we're probably going to get the legendaries early in the game. That's what's
Yeah.
striking me as something that usually you don't
Mhm.
get the legendaries until late in the game because obviously they're going to be very
Yeah.
powerful.
Uh-huh.
And I'm hoping that you don't get the legendaries in battle form until late game.
Mhm.
That if you want to say, all right, we are able to summon these legendaries and use them, as the vehicles, and that's what they do in
Mhm.
place of HMs for traversing the terrain, and that as time
Yeah.
goes on, that you unlock the different forms to be able to, fly or surf or whatever.
Mhm.
Fine, but I'm hoping that they will say, all right, you can use them to go across water, but you can't use them in battle yet. That I
Yeah.
don't want to be able to have a legendary in my party in the early game. I think that's weird and bad for balance. But
Mhm.
as long as they say, you don't get this in battle yet and you're just interacting with them in these other ways, I think that's super cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that actually. I hadn't thought about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, I remember like very much the status quo with Pokemon games is like being 40 hours in and like, is the legendary here yet?
Mhm.
Is it here yet? Can I have it now? And never knowing. So yeah, it'll be interesting to
Do you have
see.
any hopes or
Mhm.
predictions on what Fuecoco will evolve into in terms of secondary typing, if any?
Oh my gosh. What can that little pepper grow to be? I
'Cause
don't know.
I I have my guess, but I wanna know what your guess
I feel
and or
like
hope is.
oh, Blaziken was really big for me, so I'm like, little fighting fire pepper
Ooh.
would be interesting, or like a flying dragon fire pepper is also on the board as well. But I just hope that he stays a happy little pepper.
Mhm, mhm. That is
I
one of
learned.
the sad things that,
Mm,
all of the promotional art is always about the
uh-huh.
starters in their base form, and you get to love them,
Yeah,
and then you have them
yeah.
for all of 2 hours before they evolve.
Right? Yeah. And I didn't realize, I feel like this is the first Pokemon game where I'm like more so looking on social media to see like what other people say about it. And I realized while fan art was coming out for this gen of starters that there is a trend where they take these cute little like starting forms and then they slowly grow legs and become bipedal.
Mhm,
And I'm
mhm.
like,
The
hmm.
anthropomorphization, I think that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. I'm
term.
like, oh, can Coco just stay stubby and small forever? Wait, Coco might turn into my Pikachu. Like, I might end up with a level
Just
99 Wait Coco.
mm,
What are
I'm
your theories?
I like your idea of a fire dragon because it does seem to be a
Mm,
lizard, so I could definitely
mhm.
see it being dragon. I think that'd be super cool because, dragon in
Yeah.
general is a very powerful type that's been brought
Mhm.
into, more fairness given the fairy typing. Uh,
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I think there's only been 1 or 2 fire dragons that I know, Reshiram is
Mhm.
a fire dragon. I can't remember if there's any
Mhm.
others, but if not dragon, my guess would be ghost. And the reason I guess
Oh.
ghost is because
Mhm.
Fuecoco could be a ghost pepper.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing! Oh my g I feel like Flake Coco will turn into such a cash cow if that's the direction that they go into, because ghost peppers are so, like, oddly trendy right now. That would be incredible. Maybe you should maybe you should go work for Game Freak.
Oh no, I know there's, you know, Pokemon fan theories are a entire cottage industry. A lot of folks have some like really creative ones. That there's a whole bunch of folks that they do the fan art guessing where they're gonna go, and that there have been part of what they think the evolved forms are gonna be. And some people have so much creativity. I can make these broad ideas of ghost pepper typing. I can't think of what the heck it would look like.
I would love to see that now and know how many Scovilles it'll be. I love that idea. That's so creative.
Now I'm kind of hoping that its middle evolution has like the word Scoville in it somewhere.
That would be amazing. I remember at first when some people were speculating that Fuecoco was an apple. How cute
To
that
be fair,
thought.
at first glance, it does look a bit like an apple because it's round, red, it has a little sprig at the top. It's not until you sort of look at it from the side that you realize, its tail is actually, the curve of a pepper.
Yeah. But yeah, the thought of
So villain. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, that's so good. We need to email them right now.
Mhm. All right, Pokemon Company, gotta make a last-minute hot fix before the game ships in 2 months.
It'll go viral. You can do like TikTok challenges and stuff. Oh my gosh, imagine a Scoville and Ghost Pepper chip. I think we're getting somewhere with all of this, you guys.
Mhm.
That's
Do you have any
amazing.
favorite entries in the Pokemon series? That obviously we mentioned Yellow and Silver, and you mentioned that was your entry, but do you have a favorite?
I think Sapphire is the game that I spent the most hours on because I think that was the first game that I got when I got my Game Boy Advance as
Mm,
well. So I think that one that one is a very well-loved one in my heart.
the blue
Um,
one with the water legendary. Makes sense.
yeah, Kyogre. Inconceivable.
I'm
How
detecting a theme here.
How could it be? You know what's funny? You know what's funny is like I tend to fall on brand more than I expect myself to because when I actually had to like sit down and think about like a visual theme and everything for like Cheri Fish, for like what I would look like and what my color scheme is, my goal for it was to actually go quite counter to my natural inclination, which is probably more like illustrated by the room behind me, which is like very pink and warm. And I think a part of that is because my persona prior to Cheri Fish that I exist with on the internet was very like warm, pinkish, and purples. And so I,
You
I
wanted
thought it
to
would
make
be
it
fun
distinct.
to go, yeah, I thought it would be fun to go like the complete opposite direction. And it's interesting to me how much I fall in line with this theme and brand sometimes, like almost unexpectedly. Maybe this was me all along and
Yeah, I was
I just
going to
had to
say that
discover it,
surprised that this actually wasn't off-brand. This was actually you realizing what the brand was the whole time.
right?
But one thing that feels a bit off-brand for you that I know
Mm,
you're into is, we've talked Pokemon, we've talked Final
mm.
Fantasy. You've gotten into League of Legends,
Oh my
and
gosh,
that
yes.
is, in a stereotypical sense, the least casual, comfy thing there is in gaming. There are
Uh-huh.
ways to have casual, comfy, and not stereotypical League of Legends experiences, and I think as
Mhm.
someone who only played it for like a couple weeks, but has
Mhm.
watched some of like the championship level stuff, on and off. I think the
Mhm.
real key is whether or not you are playing ranked and whether or not you are playing with random opponents or if you're just playing with friends.
Yeah, I've never played. I've never when I fell in love with League of Legends, back in season 2, season 3 heyday, a long, long time ago. I think part of the reason that I was able to become so fond of it was because I didn't play solo queue. I mostly played with friends. I I think while I was really active, like my friends and I, our team was able to get to like gold 3, which feels like nothing
Mm.
in today's like competitive scene. But like it's a lot of people get, I guess, the stereotypical like salty or like toxic with that game because they're so bent on like being really good and like being the best. But like oddly, that game is really charming to me because I get to be so bad at it because it's always changing. And so it's almost like an academic experience for me where like there's always something for me to learn, like whether it's like a meta or a strategy or a champion. And like I really enjoy that. And I remember when I first started playing, I used to have like this little notebook from Daiso that I would write down like champion builds and notes about champions in. And
I'm just
so
now envisioning you. Have you seen or read My Hero Academia at all?
I have not. I have not.
Okay. Bottom line is the main character Deku has
Mhm.
this notebook where he writes these notes about all
Oh.
the heroes and whatnot. And I'm just imagining you similar to him of having this notebook and writing different notes and ideas. There's a bit of a parallel there, I suppose.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, no, that was me. But yeah, I love League because I am so bad at it, but it also means that there's always something new for me to like learn and try. And it also
Hmm.
it also just makes me think a lot.
Yeah, you've always struck me as a very academic person.
Mhm, mhm. So
Do you
yeah,
find yourself tending to any particular role in the game in terms of your champions, whether it be,
mhm.
top lane, bottom lane, jungler, etc.?
I was always a support player.
Mm,
Always a support player because I like the nuance of like playing in coordination with another person. Like I think
mhm.
that's really fun, and I always enjoyed that. And like outside of JRPGs, I don't really like gaming by myself. I think for the most part, and that's why I tend to lean towards like party games and things like that that I play with other
Gotcha.
people. Yeah, so I've always been a support at heart.
Mm. Any favorite champions?
Ooh, I actually got into the game when Lulu came out, and Lulu is like this magical little yordle. And I remember my friend telling me, like, oh yeah, like there's this champion, and her skill is that she can turn people into little squirrels. And something about that, I was just like, yes, I want that to be me. I would like that power in life. So I really love Lulu. Um, and then I think when I got more used to the game, I started playing more offensive supports like Leona, who would just get in there and like literally explode and initiate fights
So someone who
and
isn't
things like
familiar,
that.
what is Leona's design?
Oh, Leona? What? Oh gosh, I love League, but I am so bad at internalizing any kind of lore of any form in any game. But I think her theme is kind of based around like the sun. So she has this like giant sword and shield, and she engages in battle by like throwing her sword in and then stunning people by like exploding like a ray of sunlight. So
But
that's like
but
that I
but
can.
she is a human or otherwise humanoid character.
Yeah, she's a humanoid character. Mm-mm. And then again, to be very on brand with Miss Cheri Fish, there's a fish character named Nami who
Well,
stuns and traps people in bubbles. That was another one of my favorite champions as well. But it's really fun with League because there's so much range and variety.
is that I'm trying to think if I've ever seen you playing League on stream or not.
I have not yet. I actually owe my community a League stream and custom voiced League voice packs because I think they earned it
Oh, from
uh,
the charity stream?
from the 1 year anniversary stream, actually.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so I think like last month I started a new account. I can't use my old account unfortunately because my friends would
You
be like,
can't as
"Hey," and then dox me. So I started a new account. I've been trying to quietly level it off stream
mhm.
so that I can play on stream. So it's been fun kind of getting back into it. I also think it kind of just throws me back into like the freedom that I felt as like a college student just like coming home from school and it's like all right, no worries in the world. We're just gonna play League for 2 to 3 hours.
Yep, yep.
And
You mentioned
that's
that you
always a
got
good
in
feeling.
at around
Mm,
season 2 or 3, so that's early because I think it's season
yeah.
10 now?
Yeah. The game has changed so much and has become so much bigger since I first got into it. I think the first year that I started playing, I went to an in-person event, and like just thinking about how small the scale of that
Because
was.
back then it would be something that you might see it at a convention or that it
Yeah.
would be, maybe in a hotel ballroom or something, and
Yes.
now they have literal stadiums.
Yeah, literal stadiums and like I think like recently they started working with Lil Nas, and like prior to that, like they've been working
They
with K-pop
they've had
stars.
Imagine
And
Dragons.
yeah, it's wild to see how much it has grown. But it's really cool too, because like esports wasn't really a thing when I was
Yeah,
little.
that did
So yeah,
League pioneered modern day esports, in my opinion.
it
That
really
obviously
did.
it had been done before with various other games, but I think it was League that really brought it into public consciousness and prominence,
Huh?
and that they were the first to do it with what I would call truly respectable and modern production values.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the
yeah.
the analyst desk, the way that they would
Mhm.
have the overlays on the screen, that even before they
Mhm.
got to proper stadiums, that they would have these different event halls, and that they had the like the backdrops, the screens, that it all looked professional.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's in the same way that VTubing became a thing, like in the past couple of years, and people started looking at it and being like, "Oh my gosh, like maybe I can get into that and like make a living out of it." I remember, League pioneering the esports scenes and like people around me, starting to aspire and think like maybe if I work hard, like maybe I can join a team, and like
Hmm.
make this a career for myself. And so to
Yeah,
see it go from there to like where it is today and to see it grow in scale it's really cool.
and Riot itself, obviously,
Mhm.
that it's gone from just simply the League of Legends company to having, they have it's not Hearthstone, but they have like
Mm,
their auto chess one. They
yeah.
have a
Mhm.
TCG one that they've been building it out. They had Arcane,
Mhm.
and that they've been obviously still putting their focus in League where it rightfully should be as their main
Mhm.
moneymaker, but that it as a company has expanded into all these different areas.
Yeah. I remember the first year that I think they got a sponsor from Coca-Cola, and I think something about seeing that, I was just like, "This is it.
Like it's
This
real
is real.
now. It's real now.
It's
Getting
real
getting
now."
a sponsorship, but also getting a sponsorship from a global brand like Coke.
Yeah, yeah. This is real now. They're on par with, like, American Idol. They have Coca-Cola
Yep.
on
Oh
the
yes.
side. It's legit.
Pretty like I know American Idol is still airing, I think. If not, maybe it's just
Mm,
America's Got Talent. I would be
mm,
curious to know, with the decline of broadcast TV, that I know it's still on the air
mm,
one way or the other, that
mm.
who has bigger viewership numbers nowadays? My guess is it
Oh.
would probably still be, America's Got Talent,
Uh-huh.
or whichever one it is,
Mhm.
but that it's probably a lot closer than it's ever been.
Mhm. That's a really interesting thought, actually. Because it feels like, at least with, the up and coming generations and like, the circles that we mingle with, it seems like there's, especially with, the whole era of the influencer and everything,
Mhm.
it seems like um it seems like there's a lot more value placed in entertainment that is relatable and like within reach of like you can imagine yourself literally getting into this lifestyle. And, like, that feels like why streams, are getting so popular. Because
And
I
I
feel
think
like
I think that's why
Mhm.
reality shows were so successful. Things like
Yeah.
American Idol, because it was
Mhm.
normal people, and that you could envision yourself going and auditioning, and
Mhm.
that uh, whether it be that or any of the other reality shows, the fact that it was more relatable, and that it
Mhm.
was the personalities of the individual folks who were not actors, that in a
Yeah.
way that I've never actually considered before this moment, but as you were talking about that, it
Um,
almost feels like the logical predecessor to streaming.
yeah, it kind of does. Oh, now I'm like, where is this? Yeah, like now that you've mentioned it, it's, maybe not now, like maybe not now, the esports scene would be quite comparable in numbers to something like America's Got Talent, but it's not unimaginable to me that we might be making a shift towards that direction. And that's kind of an interesting thought.
Mm.
Mm.
So, one of the things that you mentioned um, that League has gotten into, along with other things,
Mhm.
is K-pop, and that they have KDA. You are a big
Yeah,
K-pop fan.
I am. That was in high school, I was the K-pop girl.
Mm.
Like, I was the person who would get other people into K-pop, and, like, that was the thing that I usually, uh, connected to people with, and prior to VTubing, I feel like my initial footprint on the internet, like, the EMV stuff was kind of where I started, but that didn't really feel like a representation of me in a way, like, I was kind of just representing things that I loved, but, like, after that, I veered into singing covers of K-pop songs, and so that kind of feels to me like my origins as a person on the internet, and so K-pop has always been a really important, I guess, part of my story
So,
and
given
my
the
life.
timeline that I
Mm,
know, just from various things that you've said, and
mm,
sort of the fact that you played Pokemon Gold with one of
mm.
those little coil lights on a Game Boy Color, that gives me a general indication of age range. And if
Uh-huh.
that's the case, that would mean that in high school, if you back in high school were the one that was listening to K-pop and getting your friends into K-pop,
Mhm.
this predates all the real K-pop surge in the US, which has really only happened, I would say, in the past 5, 6 years. That
Yeah.
it's a more recent thing that um, BTS has obviously taken the world by storm and been one of those groups that got mainstream here in the West. But
Mhm.
if we're talking even as little as 10 years ago, that
Mhm.
it's an entirely different world. So I guess
Yeah.
2 parts here. One, what was your introduction to K-pop?
Uh-huh.
And I guess, is there anything that you've seen change with the K-pop scene in general that has been particularly exciting or different, or that you, as someone who's been into it for a while, can say, "I remember when it was very
Mm.
different in this particular aspect."
Mm, let me think. I think I was introduced to K-pop when the YouTube algorithm recommended me
Ah.
like a collaboration between Big Bang and Wonder Girls. So like this, I actually got into K-pop. They refer to it as the second generation, I guess, of K-pop groups, and this was kind of a phase where K-pop was still like a very niche thing and kind of seen as something like in the Western world, it was seen kind of as like eccentric at times and almost like strange by people who weren't super familiar with it. But at that point in K pop, like groups were just aspiring towards the notion of like a more worldwide stage. So it's nothing like today where, BTS goes every year to like the Billboard Awards and it's like no one bats an eyelash
Yeah.
at it. Um, so yeah, I got into it with Wonder Girls and Big Bang when it was still kind of like a weird, quirky thing for you to be into. Um, and yeah, it's really interesting to see it change from that into something where like my very normie friends who would not normally explore these things would be able to listen to a song on the couch and then start singing it like 10 minutes later
Mm.
and no one bats an eyelash at it. Um so yeah, it started with Wonder Girls and Big Bang, and then actually, before BTS, Wonder Girls kind of made K-pop history because they became a thing over here in the US, and I think they like toured with the Jonas Brothers or something
Oh, wow.
and were an opening act for them, and they even had like a movie on Nickelodeon and things like that. But they still kind of weren't really like accepted as something that was tailored to the taste of Western media.
Yeah, that they were this quirky other thing that is
Yeah.
successful in their area and that they are very
Uh-huh.
successful as K-pop goes, but that they
Mhm.
may have been brought on more as eh, I don't mean this in a bad way, but as an
Mhm.
oddity, as something different
No,
of
yeah.
that
Mhm.
not that different is bad, but here is something that you
Mhm.
might not see other places.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, back in, that second gen period, as a lot of fans call it, where there were groups like Big Bang, Wonder Girls, Girls' Generation, what were the other big names then? Like FX, for example. Like, part of the charm of K-pop was the fact that it was very much an oddity in the way that it looked and sounded compared to like the Western music that people were interested in. And so it's kind of interesting that because as you go through this timeline, kind of like the spread of K-pop corresponds with it becoming a lot more westernized and palatable to a worldwide audience. And so a lot of K-pop fans kind of like from back in that day have almost like bittersweet feelings now with K-pop because it's so nice to see something that you love become something so mainstream and kind of like more idolized and
Yeah.
appreciated on a global scale. But, like, most people who got into it back then would listen to K-pop today and say, like, "This doesn't actually really sound like K-pop," it sounds like something that I can hear on the radio today,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, like you said, sort of the westernization and
Yeah.
the bittersweetness makes a lot of sense of you'd like to see
Mhm.
other people get into things that you're into, but at what cost?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Mm,
yeah, for a lot of people, that's kind of been, like, a big hurdle to get over as far as, like, keeping up with K-pop, but, like, I think it's so cool that something that used to be looked at as an oddity is now seen as, like, "Wow, like, that's incredible, they're so cool," and it's kind of idolized by people
yeah,
on
and
a worldwide scale, and I really enjoy it, and I'm really happy for, like, the success that it has had. Um, but I also think back fondly to the days as well where me being a fan of K-pop meant doing song covers. And this isn't really
mhm,
something that happens anymore, but like back in that second gen day, like, a decade ago, a big part of the K-pop fandom was K-pop fan covers. And the way that that worked would like involve a song coming out and then people literally posting clips on YouTube saying like audition, Wonder Girls, Nobody, like here are the parts that we want to
mhm.
cast. And
So,
this
one thing that I've learned about from other guests
uh-huh.
is about the Utaite community, and that's generally
Yes.
in reference to Vocaloid.
Yes.
What you
Yes,
were
yes,
describing
yes.
from my extremely rudimentary knowledge of the Utaite community, it sounds like a pretty parallel community, and just
Mhm.
that me growing up I get the feeling we're about the same age, that we grew up in about the same time, that
Mhm.
I was never aware of the vast online world of cover collabs, and
Uh-huh.
that I've learned from others that, that, like I said, there was that for Vocaloid, and it
Uh-huh.
sounds like there was that for K-pop. So, one,
Mhm.
e do you know any amount about the Utaite community to confirm or refute whether the parallel that I'm talking about right now is accurate?
I do. I was actually very deeply entwined in the Utaite community. I started off as like kind of on the K-pop covering side um, of that world, and then I kind of transitioned into becoming a Utaite. And even with that, it was kind of interesting because I think the more like prominent and like socially accepted or like coveted community, which was the Utaite community, was kind of covering like Vocaloid songs and anime songs, and that was seen as like really, really cool. And I think a part of it was with Utaite productions, there's usually like visual components to it as well. But there was actually very much a time where like the Utaite community wasn't so warm and friendly towards the K-pop community because kind of like the way that the world viewed second gen K-pop as like an oddity. There was
Mm,
kind of that perception as well, because it seemed to a lot of people like the K-pop covering scene didn't involve like as much hard work, I guess, in a way, or like originality or effort. But that's changed over time as well. And like today, I'm actually really happy to see the Utaite community actually appreciating and celebrating K-pop. And I think that is something that also progressed with the trajectory of the world coming to
mm,
accept K-pop as well. So they were definitely like very adjacent things that didn't mingle or like mix as well a long time ago to something that's become very intertwined. And I feel like most people who I grew up with in the K-pop covering community are just Utaite at
but
this
you
point.
would say that in terms of how that structurally, I suppose, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
that the way that the K-pop covering community and Utaite community work are similar. That at least the parallel in terms of the idea of those types of collaborations,
Mhm.
that is relatively accurate.
Mhm, mhm. It's pretty similar. It's usually fielded out as like, here is a song, and like we're looking for a certain number of parts or like a certain cast of voices that we would like to put together for this collaboration. And like it would usually kind of go from there.
And what role did you usually end up having there? Were you someone who performed as a singer? Were you one of the organizers?
I started off as just a singer and then kind of transitioned my way into being a singer and organizer just because I like planning things and coordinating people. And I also, at some points, I also dabbled into the mixing as well. I think the only thing that I haven't dabbled into as far as like roles when it comes to Utaite productions is like animation and art.
Mm,
But I think pretty much everything else I've dabbled into. And interestingly, a lot of that has prepared me very well for becoming a VTuber. Like I find that a lot of skills that I learned as a Utaite lended well to me becoming a VTuber and having like a lot of know-how regarding like media, and like making content and networking and like collaborating and working with people in general.
yeah.
So that's
I
been kind of like a cool adaptation of like my past to my
mm,
present.
and like I said, I've had a couple guests in the past who were really into Taite community, and it's something that feels like a
Mhm.
very natural progression for folks in that
Mhm.
scene because obviously it's not a inherent part of VTubing, but it is
Mhm.
certainly not uncommon for VTubers to do covers, to make music,
Mhm.
and that basically VTubing has allowed for a not just a seamless transition, but potentially even a emerging really
Mhm.
with one's Utaite either production or persona or anything of that nature, because folks didn't
Mhm.
always go by their IRL name, that they would have their handles
Yeah.
similar to VTubing, and that whether they adapted that handle to their VTuber or maybe a new persona, that they were
Mhm.
already familiar with the concept of working with that layer of anonymity and,
Yeah.
like you said, of networking and doing that type of
Mhm.
organization completely online and still being able to put things together, and naturally that they would have familiarity with different editing software. So I can
Mhm.
absolutely see how those skills would lend themselves to VTubing and make a very easy crossover there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Are you familiar with Hamilton at all?
The musical?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's the notion in Hamilton that the end that always really struck me, where Aaron Burr realizes like the world was big enough for both of us after all.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's where I would like to see the Utaite community and the VTuber community going one day. It's kind of what happened with like I guess kind of the wall between like the K-pop covering community and the Utaite covering community initially, because I think when there are two identities that kind of have like a lot of crossover like that, but also their own like unique things that make them separate. There's often kind of this perception that like the world isn't big enough for these
Oh,
two
so
groups, or that like
so
one
I
is
may
at
have
odds
actually
with the other.
accidentally stumbled into something. So, um,
Uh-huh.
I know that obviously, the Utaite community is still a thing. It has not gone anywhere.
Uh-huh.
But I am not involved enough in that community to know about its relationship with the VTuber community other than a good
Ah,
number of Utaite have become VTubers. But if
mhm.
I'm understanding what you're saying, that currently there is not animosity, but that there is not necessarily that there is a complex relationship between the Utaite and VTuber communities.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think like Indigo says, it's like learning how we can grow together and that
Yeah,
this
that
world is big enough for for both of us.
yeah,
To
and I
have a
definitely
good
agree
place
that
to
it's
Mhm.
rising ship sorry, rising tide lifts all ships proposition
Yeah.
in content creation. And
Mhm.
I suppose it is not shocking to hear that the Utaite community and VTuber community are having similar struggles to what the Utaite and K-pop cover community had back in
Mhm.
the day, but that hopefully we will make our way, as you said, to where the K-pop and
Mhm.
Utaite communities are now. And also, is there a proper term for the K-pop cover community, a la Utaite being the
Mm.
lexicon for Vocaloid and J-pop covers?
Mhm. I honestly don't think there ever really was because I don't think that community ever had like a really strong identity, like identifier compared to the Utaite
Hmm.
community, which was a lot closer in terms of like social connections. And I think some of this has to do with the fact that I hope some people in chat remember this. uh, K-pop covering relied very heavily on the days and flourished in the days when YouTube had like video responses as a thing. So what would happen is like someone would say, "I want to host a collaboration of like this new song by Girls' Generation. Like here are the parts. Please put a video response where you would sing um like Jessica's section or whatever to place your audition." And compared to like the Utaite community, where producing something took a lot more effort because there were usually visual and art components. And so people would kind of like talk more while putting those things together. The K pop community was mostly kind of just like, get your parts in, we'll put out a thing, and like that's it. And so it was always kind of like a little less tight knit than the Utaite
Mm.
community because of that. So I don't think there ever really was like a term that kind of labeled that group or community because I don't know if it ever really had like a strong community identity, if it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, as opposed to like a common thing that just like a bunch of people engaged with.
Mm. How
Hmm.
many covers did you end up doing? And I'll lump these together. That between the Utaite and K-pop communities, in
Hmm.
total, how many covers were you involved with in any capacity, whether that be as a singer, as a coordinator, producer, or both?
Hmm. Let me take a look at some accounts
Please
here.
stand by while Cheri checks the records.
Please let me grab my data really quick. I feel like I'll be surprised by how many. Um, let me think. Let me think here. I feel like at minimum, at minimum, probably like 30 collaborations.
Wow.
At minimum.
And that would be over a span of how many years?
When did I start? I think I started off when in my in high school when my friend and I discovered that there was a recording studio in the back of the bedroom. I think that was in like
Wait, so
2010?
one, there was a recording studio
Yeah.
in your band room. Are we talking like outfitted with actual tech, or was this just a small practice room that could double as a recording studio?
It was like a little recording studio room with like the microphone and like a mixer and like the programs like that you would need and everything as well. It was basically like a closet room. Like it was a tiny little
Well,
square.
even so, like my high
Uh-huh.
school, like, we had two practice rooms attached to our
Uh-huh.
band room where you could go to practice, but that there was no
Mhm.
tech in this. And
Yeah.
well, before I go into this, so you looked up the data. It was about 30, was it?
It was a at least 30, I would say. I also this history in my timeline also spans, like, multiple accounts.
Oh,
Um, so I'm gonna say at least 30, but I'm actually going to be doing a stream, at some point in the future where I go back and listen to some of these collaborations and covers. So maybe I can get a stronger tally while I'm doing that. But yeah,
mm,
I've been around, I guess to say, for lack of better terms, and I think I've been around since like 2011. I want to say, so it's been over a decade.
yeah.
Um, quite a long time.
So hopping back to this amazing recording studio, or I won't say amazing recording
Yeah.
studio. I'm just amazed at the mere fact that your band room had a recording studio. It sounds like wherever you went to school was very had a lot
Mhm.
of technology integration, because one thing that
Yes.
you told me is that you used to rent video games from your school, which is a completely foreign concept to me.
Okay, so this actually spans like two very opposite ends of the spectrum. While Jay and I were kind of getting kind of, I guess, like feelers out for points of conversation that we could talk to, we came across the point that when I was in elementary school, I actually went to a school where I think in fifth grade we were sent home with PlayStations and like educational games with the hopes that we would play those games instead of like getting in trouble because um where I went to school in elementary school, which was like where I grew up, it was basically like the slums. Like I think at one point the neighborhood was known as like one of the top 10 like most dangerous cities in America. And so interestingly enough, even though we couldn't afford like the most updated textbooks or like even enough textbooks for everyone to have
And you
their
could
own
afford
book.
enough PlayStations for everyone. This baffles me even more because I didn't know that part of it. And I grew up in a distinctly middle class suburb
Uh-huh.
area.
Uh-huh.
Um, my elementary school was probably on the smaller side. That one thing I've been very open about is that I grew up in Maryland,
Uh-huh.
and I now live in Texas. And the Texas schools
Mhm.
are huge. Texas schools
Uh-huh.
have a lot of people. My elementary
Mhm.
school was probably 3 to 500 kids, I think.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
So not tiny. That it The average class size was about 30 kids, which I feel like that's average.
Mhm.
A 22 to 30 kid class. I think that's about average.
Mhm.
And we in fourth or fifth grade had these very chunky little keyboards. I think they were called Dream Writers. That
Ah.
one of the things that we had was in fourth and fifth grade. Uh, Once every week or two, there would be typing classes,
Uh-huh.
and that we were given once or twice these assignments to do them typed instead of handwriting. And
Uh-huh.
there were these chunky things that imagine about the size of a laptop when it
Uh-huh.
is closed, and that it
Mhm.
doesn't open, that it is just this essentially flat tablet that has a small little LED screen at the top, and that
Uh-huh.
there would be like 2 to 3 lines visible at a time, but that you could type it up,
Mhm.
then USB connect it to a computer and import it to a Word
Mhm.
document or something. But that this way, even if you didn't have a computer at home, and that they didn't have to, give kids computers, and laptops
Mhm.
were a thing, but still very, very expensive, that was
Mhm.
they sent us home with them maybe once or twice, but usually this would be
Mhm.
a thing of your class goes to the library for an hour or
Mhm.
two, and that you are given one of these dream writers, and then that you put it back at the
Mhm.
end of that learning block or whatever. That is the
Mhm.
closest thing that we got to signed out technology. And like I said, this
Mhm.
was uh, middle class suburbs. So if you grew up in a neighborhood that was not as nice, and then you were getting
Mhm.
PlayStations, I'm
We were
still
getting
I'm trying to
wasted.
figure out how this happened. Was this a
Uh-huh.
thing of like I have to assume that there was some grant involved
Probably,
because
probably.
I don't care what school you're going to. At that just PlayStations when they were new and that when they were the current gen console,
Uh-huh.
by today's standards, would have
Mhm.
cost, $300 to $500 each. That
Yeah.
and that's by today's standards. And
Yeah.
I guess how big were your classes?
I think, definitely, like, at least 30 kids, and I
Okay,
don't
and
think I think if I remember correctly, I think it was one of those things where it's, like, only the 5th graders got to take home a PlayStation, like,
even
for the year.
so,
But that's yeah, that's
like
still a
the
lot.
fact that they would have even enough to outfit a single class, let alone an entire grade, is
Uh-huh. It's it's interesting to look back and think about this because I mean, obviously as a kid, right? When they're telling me like you have a PlayStation and you have a PlayStation, I'm like, okay, like I'm
that's
not gonna
amazing.
ask any
And
questions.
to be fair, from an educational perspective, I think the idea of like I'm a huge proponent of video games and education. I think the idea of
Mhm.
saying, yeah, we're gonna give you this system and some educational games to play at home.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. I
Mhm.
I am not at all shocked by the concept of using that as a learning tool. I'm merely
Uh-huh.
shocked because of the cost involved. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a brilliant way, and I think honestly it should be done more.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's necessarily practical for many
Mhm.
schools to do that because, expensive. Because even
Mhm.
today, that if you're talking, $250 for a
Mhm.
console, and obviously we have
Mhm.
computers now, so you can just do, uh, you know, here's the download for whatever program, and that's going to be easier. But
Mhm.
I wish more schools did that. Do you remember any of the games that you were sent home with?
It was literally one game. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember it was just a bunch of mini games. Some of them were kind of like memory brain training games. Some of
Mm,
them were like math games. I remember it had a sweets theme. And so I remember there was one game where they would like show you a picture of a cake and then you had to try to reconstruct the same cake in mini
mm,
game form. So it was literally one disc. And naturally, I was like, I have this PlayStation. I'm not only gonna play this one
they
game,
they never said
right?
you couldn't use it for other things.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So, like, my family and I, we used to go to the flea market every weekend. It was like our family tradition. So after I got this PlayStation, every weekend I would just go to the flea market and I would just look
Scout
for
out
it.
games.
Yeah, I would just scout out like game boxes and I would just go, like rummaging through it like a raccoon. And that was how I ended up with like games that I would play, but no memory card. Hence, when I say that I played Final Fantasy
Yep.
VIII, I played the first 45 minutes of Final Fantasy VIII. Um, but yeah, as far as like how were they able to do this, it must have been a grant of some kind because like obviously like the school didn't have money. But like now that you mention like the little like the typing things that you guys had at your school, and how like even that felt like a luxury that you were surprised like was provided. I now that makes me remember that like when we learned typing, we actually had like the brand new like Mac computers. Like you remember the
Oh,
ones that
so
were cubes and they were
yeah,
different
so we had
colors?
those as well. We had those as well. That we had a computer lab at the elementary
Uh-huh.
school, and we would go there,
Mhm.
and that there would be typing things on that, and
Mhm.
they would show us certain websites for educational games.
Mhm.
Trying to remember if I can. It was like it was something mathgames.com. I
Yeah.
don't know, but like there were a
Mhm.
lot of different fun little flash ones. Um, those Dream Writers were only I think when I was in like second and third grade, and that it when
Mhm.
we got the proper computers when I was in fourth and fifth, and we would play Oregon Trail. Nobody ever actually finished the game. We all obviously, starved to death and whatnot because none of us were any good at the game. Oregon Trail is a surprisingly difficult
Uh-huh.
game.
It is.
Cool math games. Thank you, Mr. Indigo.
Mhm. Mhm. It'll
Yes,
be
I
fun, they
absolutely
said.
remember those colored Macs. I know exactly the design you're talking about.
Mhm. But yeah, now I'm kind of thinking of the duality of how, like, I went to school in a very, like, when I say poor, like, it's not actually an exaggeration, like, most people, in that city lived, like, poverty level. Um But yeah, like having luxuries in that environment versus the second environment, which is like where I went to middle school slash high school, which was a very wealthy school. I obviously did not pay my way through it. Um, uh, the two cities actually kind of had like this working agreement with each other, where like a certain number of
Magnet
scholarships would be
program.
given. Yeah, yeah, basically. And so I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship into the very wealthy school, and that was where we had like the recording studio and everything. And this is where I mentioned to you in our little brief talk before the stream, where I realized at some point in my life that I have kind of been like a real life version of Haruhi from over in high school.
Oh, yeah, you had mentioned that, so I'm very curious. So, the that going from a poor environment to a fancier
Hmm.
school where you may have been, out of your element in some way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
uh, Ouran High School Host Club is one of my favorite animes of all time.
Hmm.
Uh, so now I'm curious, what are the other elements that you might have found in parallel, or is it mostly that major one of being going to a fancy school when it's not necessarily what you're used to?
It was mostly that, but also kind of like the components of like Haruhi, as they lovingly refer to her in the show, like as a commoner.
Oh gosh, was it
Trying
actually?
I think they do actually literally refer to her as a commoner.
Oh no, I definitely remember that they referred to Haruhi as that. I'm saying,
Uh-huh.
did your classmates call you that?
Oh no. Oh no,
Okay,
not
okay,
at
I would
all.
be like, "Oh, that'd be awful." You're absolutely right. They definitely say that in Oron. I was
Mhm.
just making sure that wasn't one of the parallels,
Oh no.
at
Oh
least in
man, I
what they
think if I
actually
said
said.
that, the pitchforks would come out. But I resonated with her experience as like a commoner, like getting into this new world and being like, how the heck does this work?
Mhm, mhm.
Because like in many regards, as someone who grew up in a literal hood, um, and like it was an environment where my parents were very much like, don't talk to other kids, you don't like we don't want you around them, like we don't know what they're going to teach you and things like that. All of a sudden going to like probably one of the richest cities upstate and going to school there, and like all of a sudden having to learn how to like socialize with people and like fit into that environment and way of life. It was definitely hard for me, but also very interesting and good because it definitely kind of broadened my view of the world,
Mhm.
and set me up to get out of where I started.
That's good.
Hmm.
That, for me, that middle school and high school, same area of just probably, like I
Hmm.
said, distinctly middle class to skewing upper
Hmm.
middle class suburb area. Um, so
Hmm.
I was not at the nicest school in the county, but also not the lower end.
Hmm.
It's one of those things that I didn't even realize until I was in college and a bit older. Of that, my experience in school, I think, falls into a almost stereotypical level of average.
Mm.
But it's meant that I suppose average in its own way is good because it means that I've seen and heard of both ends of the spectrum
Mhm.
on either side of my average, and I
Mhm.
recognize that mine was not particularly remarkable, and knowing that is its own form of knowledge, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me it was interesting because I started off at like one end of the spectrum and then
Yeah,
like
that
whiplashed
you actually
all the way the
got
opposite end. And so like for me, like my only way to really experience and like try to understand like what you're kind of describing as the average was actually through movies.
mhm.
And like how different that was from both of my other
Because
experiences.
you realized that the experience portrayed as average was not the experience that you had had at either place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah, it's shaped me as a person in a very interesting way, I think.
I can
Um,
imagine.
yeah, like, just to contextualize exactly, like, how much it was, like, the other end of the spectrum, like, I think when I was going to school there, I think tuition for a single year and, like, keep in mind, this school started off in pre-K and went all the way up to 12th grade, and for
Okay, so
every
it
class,
was one of
there were, like
those, full on
yeah,
academy level things that you can
yeah,
go from
mhm,
pre-K through 12 and
yeah, yeah.
never leave that institution.
Yeah, and the tuition per year at that time, like a decade ago, I think it was like $20,000 a year.
Oof.
A year. And like every class, I forget they had a name for it at the like at graduation that meant like, oh, like you've been here ever since pre-K. Like every class had at least a handful of people who had been there since pre-K.
Mm.
And so that kind of explains, the luxury of like the actual recording studio
Yeah,
in the
now it's
band.
all making sense.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, most of the people that I went to school with came from very well-to-do families.
Now, backtracking a bit, you mentioned there being this recording studio in the band room, which then begs the question, were you a band kid?
I I was not a band kid. I was a choir kid for 2 years. Specifically, one of them was the year in which the choir group was meant to go to Disneyland. So I was never a part of band, but my friend was, and, like, that was how I discovered that little gem of a recording
Okay, yeah, because I was
studio
thinking,
in the
all
back
right,
of the room.
how would you be aware of this? Because,
Yeah.
but that makes a lot of sense.
And it's interesting, like, you think that was something so cool like that, that it would be more broadcasted, but I think, like, my friend and I were literally the only people who would go in there
But it was
and
also
use that room.
probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it was partially people knew that it was there, but didn't know
Mm,
what to do with it or how to
true.
use it, and that they'd be like, "That's a recording studio, but I don't have any
Mhm.
cause to record or anything." Whereas
That's
you had
true.
the circumstance of those
Mhm.
covers to actually want to seek it out and make use of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Life works out in a funny way sometimes.
Mhm.
But I'm really glad that I discovered that room because I think without that, I might not have veered onto the trajectory where I started singing and like developing an online persona and then like eventually getting here,
Yeah, that
to
it
where
just,
I am
if you
today.
interrupt that part of the timeline, what is the ripple effect there
Mhm.
that you might not be talking to me at this very moment?
Right, right.
So you said that you were in chorus for 2 years.
Mhm.
Did you join chorus in the last 2 years of school because you got into singing via K-pop, or had you been in it earlier and then, dropped out of chorus at some later point because reasons?
Ugh. Okay. I had always been interested in being a member of the choir, but I, contrary to me who like will sing for on stream for 8 hours and just talk endlessly on stream and seems like very outgoing, I am such a shy, nervous Nelly in real life. And so the notion of having to audition to get into choir was
Oh, it was an
something that
audition-based class.
yeah, and it's
Okay.
it's so silly because our school was literally so small that anytime there was an audition for something, you kind of automatically got in because they didn't have any
Yeah, that
room to
it may
reject
have been
people.
a more of a proficiency test than
Yeah.
a, "Oh, we have so many people that we need to cut others out,"
Uh-huh.
that it's just making sure that nobody who has
Mhm.
no clue what they're doing signs up
Mhm.
and that they are then dragging down the rest of the class because the
Mhm.
teacher needs to be spending class time getting them up to basic proficiency of, you know, being able
Mhm.
to use their voice or understand music.
So yeah, like knowing that there was an audition to it, like if there wasn't an audition to it, I probably would have been a part of it like every single year. But because there was the audition, I was so afraid of trying out, like having to try out to be a part of it.
And there was
But
only this audition one because at my high school, there
uh-huh.
were 3 chorus classes, the beginner, intermediate,
Mhm.
and advanced, and you had to audition for the advanced one. And
Ah,
if you didn't get in, that you could still take the beginner one if you were in, it was ninth, 10th grade, and then you were in the intermediate one if you were 11th, 12th, basically regardless of your singing skill, but that you had to audition
Mm,
for this third one, and you could get in as
mhm,
early as ninth grade if you had the skill for that.
mhm,
And that was it was more than a proficiency test there, but that was because
mhm.
they had these other ones that you could be involved in chorus if you were interested, no matter what. And it was only if uh, you know, wanted to be in this upper one. But it sounds like there was
Mhm.
not that fallback, and that the only chorus class was this audition one.
Yeah, we really only had the one class, and I think for them the audition was kind of just to make sure that people weren't joining who like had no interest in being a part of the
Hmm.
choir at all, but only an interest in like joining for the trips that they had,
Okay, yeah,
like
that
every 2 years.
was
Mhm.
almost a basic effort barrier of
Yeah,
just
kinda.
to make
Yeah.
sure, because like you said
Yeah.
that there was a Disney trip involved, and that you wouldn't want
Mhm.
folks signing on specifically just to get that, dragging
Yeah.
the group down all year long only
Mhm.
to jump out the next year.
Mhm. Yeah, and, like, unfortunately, it was kind of also an honor system as well, so, like, there were still people who you could tell, like, really only wanted to go on the trip,
Mm,
but went through too because I and not to be mean, but I was not surrounded by the best singers, and I remember, like, having a hard time staying on my part because I was literally next to, like, people who were
couple folks that didn't know what they were doing, and just
yeah.
as a singer, if you are near someone who is off pitch, that the better a singer you are, the
Mhm.
more instinctually you will adapt to those around you, because that is the
Yes,
correct thing to do in
yes.
singing. But the problem
Mhm.
is, if the people around you are off, you
Mhm.
will then also be off.
Yeah. Yeah, at one point, I had to, like, train myself to try to just, like, somehow psychologically, like, turn off the hearing in my left
Mhm.
ear
Oh,
because
that's
the girl to my
difficult.
left was so, so sweet, but she was very literally tone deaf.
Oh, no.
And so it was so disorienting to stand next to her and learn how to sing. And like going to a smaller school, like my graduating class was only 70 people.
Okay, yeah,
So it was
wow,
a
that is
really
small.
small school. Yeah, very, very small. And so like you had similar issues with our sports teams as well, where basically like
Mm.
there was like, tryouts, but pretty much everyone who tried out would get in, like whether they were on, junior varsity um, or varsity. But yeah, I mustered up the courage to audition in my last 2 years because I was like, you know what, I've always wanted to be a part of this, and like the trip is coming up too, and a lot of my friends want to go on that, to like make a memory on our way out. So I finally mustered up the courage, even though I was so scared during the audition that I think I left it like crying.
Oh, no.
Like the teacher was very nice and everything, but it's cool to say like how much I've grown because now like I will go do a stream in front of like 70 people and be singing and be happy and not feel nervous. And so this has been an arc
Mm.
that has continued off from there.
Yeah, that for me, I was a band kid who was also a theater kid, which meant
Ah.
that I did singing for musicals, but I was never in the chorus classes. But I had some
Mm.
interactions with the choral teacher, obviously, for those musicals, and I had a good number of friends, mostly folks who were also in theater that were in the chorus
Mm.
classes. Um, I I played violin for a semester in fourth grade. That you at my elementary school, you could start playing an instrument in fourth grade,
Uh-huh.
and I played violin for a semester and then stopped. That combination, just I was not having a great time, and
Uh-huh.
fourth grade was a busy year, so I dropped it.
Mhm.
And in middle school, you had your elective slot, so that
Mhm.
there were 7 periods in the school day, 6 of which were the normal academic classes, and then you had this one other for your elective, and the options were
Mhm.
band, chorus,
Mhm.
or what was called arts rotation, which was basically every quarter you would do a different thing. That there was like
Mhm.
studio art, shop, um, I think one of them was home ec, and I can't remember what the fourth was,
Mhm.
but I was miserable in 6th grade in arts rotation that there was the folks who were in band and chorus, and everyone else was in arts rotation. It was just a lot of kids who were
Mm.
not really tuned in. Also, the the art teacher at my middle
Uh,
school was just not nice at all.
oh no.
And so meanwhile, I was hearing from a bunch of my friends who had been in band and orchestra who were just having a
Mhm.
blast, and the band
Aw.
teacher at my middle school was just adored. She was so nice. So I
Aw.
said, "All right, I'm getting the frick out of arts rotation and into band next year because it sounds like you're having a great time and I'm miserable over here. Cool. So let's do this. Um, Trumpet. Trumpet sounds good. I'll play trumpet." And I go to the band teacher and say, "I'd like to join and play trumpet." And she says, "Okay, but just so you know, there's a lot of trumpets. And
Mhm.
since you're gonna be new, if you play trumpet, you're gonna have to be in the 6th grade band as a 7th grader because you're gonna be
Ah.
new. And there's just too many trumpets in the 7th
Mm.
grade band already. But
Ah.
we don't have any trombones. If you
Ah.
pick up trombone and just do a couple of lessons to make sure that you have the basics down by the start of the school
Mm.
year, I'll let you be in the 7th grade band." And I said, "All right, I'm taking up trombone in that case because, of course, I want to be with my friends in 7th
Uh-huh.
grade band."
Mhm.
And that's how I wound up playing trombone throughout the rest of middle school, high school, and college.
Wow, did you end up liking trombone, or
Oh,
were
I
you
loved
just
it.
like, "Oh, I don't
Uh,
have
oh,
to
oh no,
deal with the
I
miserable art teacher."
quickly grew to love it. Um,
Aw.
but for whatever reason,
Mm.
trombone in my middle school and high school, like I said, nobody was there in 7th grade, and it was me and one other friend who happened to pick up trombone for the same reason. So it was the two
Mm.
of us as the only trombonists in this band, both of us on our first year, um, and we went through, and it meant that I was quickly the first chair trombone as a first year trombonist,
Wow.
and that was scary because
I can
it's
imagine.
not every piece, but every so often
Mm.
there's a solo trombone part, and that always goes to the first chair. And like, I'm I was fortunate enough to be okay at trombone that I was able to pass things off and
Mhm.
not be embarrassing. But
Mhm.
for 7th and 8th grade, it was apparent that I was behind, whereas everyone else had been playing most of these folks since 4th or 5th grade. So I had to play a bit
Uh-huh.
of catch up there. And then
Mm.
I got to audition for the highest level band. That the bands in my high school were the same structure as the choir. So it was the three groups,
Mhm.
6th grade, the beginning, middle, and then the high level audition one. The
Mhm.
symphonic band, as it was called, which also doubled as the marching band for the first quarter of the school year, had also
Mm.
run out of trombones. So I decided to audition, and lo and behold, I got in as first chair. But meanwhile, now I'm playing alongside folks who are, 11th and 12th grade and have been playing since 4th and 5th grade, and I
Mm.
feel even more like I'm behind. But the fact that I'm far behind pushes me a little bit. And
Mm.
because I feel like, all right, I need to make sure that I'm not embarrassing myself, that I'm not even trying to
Mm.
be the best because there's nobody to even really compete against. That it's me and like one or two others. And I was just good enough of the folks that were not all stellar to end up being first chair the whole time. And yeah, there
Mm.
we go. And by the time I was in college, I was just genuinely confident in my ability.
That's such
But
a lovely
it took that
story.
long, and it was just such a weird thing because usually it's,
Mhm.
if you're flute or violin or clarinet, that it's super competitive for that first chair
Mhm.
slot. And it was never really a competition. And it was the type of thing that I didn't care if I got the second or third chair.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it just so happened that nobody among the trombonists were awful, but none of us were prodigies. And I just happened to be
Mhm.
that, half step, I guess, better. Question mark, shrug. I don't know. That's what the band
Uh-huh.
teacher said, so I'll take their word for it.
Mm. I guess in this case, it's with great privilege comes
Yeah,
great responsibility.
basically, basically. But
Mm.
then when it came to chorus, for theater, my
Mhm.
big secret that I was very proud of that I don't think the chorus teacher knew until after I graduated and told him,
Mhm.
keep in mind my musical journey. I
Mhm.
never got taught to read choral music. And when
Mhm.
it came time for, you know, the musicals and everything, that there was a singing audition, and what I'm good at is pitch replication. I can hear a
Ah,
pitch, I can
yes.
hear music, and I can
Mhm.
match that pitch. That if you
Mhm.
do da, I can go da,
Uh-huh.
and know
Mhm.
that. I don't know what note I just sang right now. You could tell me
Yeah.
that was a B flat, and I'd believe you. It might be a C. I don't know, but
Mhm, mhm.
I have a good ear, and
Mhm.
what I would do is I would just listen to the soundtrack of whatever musical it was, and I could read
Ah.
sheet music because I
Mhm.
played trombone, so I could see, all right,
Mhm.
now what's half note, whole note, staccato, all
Oh.
that jazz. So I knew whatever dynamics were involved, and
Mm.
by that, and just relativity of notes, I would just memorize the music and be able to replicate it, but I never knew how to read the sheet music.
It's funny that you say that because I can't read notes either, and that's why I cried after my choir audition
But you still
because the
made it.
audition involves sight reading, and it's like I really put my best effort in,
Oh,
and it
I
was
could
just
have
not something.
never sight read.
Yeah, it was terrifying, and, like, it was really terrifying for me because even as a little girl, like, I've always loved singing so much, and so to love it so much, but not be able to do this thing that,
Oh
feels
my
so
gosh,
vital and important.
Rena Marina,
Readers!
thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders Shark Raid. Oh my. Hello,
Great,
hello,
sure.
everybody. I'm Jay. This is
Welcome!
Vtuber Talk. I'm talking with Cheri Fish this afternoon. Cheri, if you could introduce yourself again.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cheri Fish. I am a variety slice of life streamer. I like to sing, cook, craft, learn, and play. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I'm just getting a shout out for
Mhm.
Rena. Thank you so much. You were playing Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know a lot of folks who really enjoy Final Fantasy 14. You missed the Final Fantasy
Mhm.
chat earlier in the show.
Mhm.
You can watch the VOD, or this is going to be up on YouTube in about a week. But we were talking mostly
Mhm.
about 7 and 10. But
Mhm.
yes, welcome on in, Raiders. And thank you, Jupiter Seon, for the follow. And also from earlier, the Poor Hobbyist and Ranger UAC. Rena, I hope you had a wonderful stream. Make sure to get lots of rest. Take care of yourself. B
Yes.
Zinni, thank you for the follow. Uh, but yeah, Rena, if you want to stick around, please do. But I will totally understand if you are just tired and need to go eat or take a nap, whatever. And
Mhm.
thank you also for the follow, Rena.
Yay!
Yay! We were just talking about our various musical experiences from school, in that neither of us knew how to read choral music, but both had various chorus experiences. So
Mhm.
I guess the question then is, Cherry, the way I was able to fake it was because I
Mhm.
had played trombone and because basically I have a good memory and was able to
Mhm.
replicate things that I heard. So
Mhm.
even when I was singing incorrectly or was off on something, that naturally the chorus teacher would say it's not da 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 da, it's da
Mhm.
da da da, and I would just be able to replicate
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Mhm.
since you didn't have a band experience, what was your methodology of faking it till you made it?
So I mean, basically, the funny thing is, even though we had to do a sightseeing recital in order to get to the choir, like once you were actually in choir, obviously, like while teaching the music, the choir teacher would sing it, and so I would also just learn it by hearing it because I have perfect pitch, and so I would just memorize it that way, and like I never looked at like the actual musical notes like on the
Hmm.
on the sheet music like while I was following along. Like I would just hear it
Yeah.
and I would just replicate it.
Okay, so we were very similar in that way, in that
Mhm.
the sheet music for me was entirely for dynamics,
Yeah,
basically
and
to
like,
know, all right,
mhm.
crescendo, decrescendo, all that jazz.
Yeah, for me it was just like, all right, these are the lyrics.
Hmm.
Got it, words. I can read those. I know how to read those.
But
And
you
like
still
the
had to
music.
audition then, and
Yeah.
that, like I said, I was able to BS my way through auditions because I knew what musical I was auditioning for, so I was able to just listen to the
Mm,
soundtrack in advance, memorize
mhm,
whatever song or whatever part I was auditioning with, and walk in, be
mhm,
totally confident. But if I had been
mhm.
handed a thing to sight read, I'd have been
Yeah,
screwed. So
it
how did
was
you handle that?
it was scary. Like, I think I did decent eno I definitely didn't nail it, but I did decent enough. But it was also just kind of, like, me fumbling through it and, like, trying my best. Like, I had no confidence. I didn't feel
Mhm.
good about
But at
it.
the same time, I'm guessing the chorus teacher probably recognized, all right, even if she's fumbling a bit, one, I'm guessing most students are going to be fumbling to a
Uh-huh.
degree and nervous because it's an audition and it's sight reading, so nobody's
Mhm.
expecting it to be perfect anyway.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
that they were probably able to hear, all right, she's got a good
Mhm.
voice and that she's
Mhm.
got clear tone and,
Mhm.
is probably doing the basics of breath support and
Yeah.
is able to at least see, all right, I can work with this. That
Mhm.
even if
Mhm.
they're fumbling around a lot now, that I can tell that they would be somebody who would be able to get up to the level that I need, given some basic levels of instruction and probably just, you know, the air of genuineness that you
Yeah.
exude and be able to figure out, okay, she's probably not just here for the Disney trip.
Mhm. Yes, the potential. She saw
Yes.
the potential. But yeah, I think sight reading is probably one of the most terrifying things I've ever had to do in front of someone. And I remember like how traumatizing that experience was because like at that point in time and like growing up, it's like even though I had enjoyed singing, like I had ingrained in me that I could never really like make music or like pursue music obviously like if I cannot read music. Um but I have a lot of comfort because there are a lot of people who are similar to us, and like as VTubers who are making and releasing original music, and like for whom like that is not a blocker. And so I am happy to see now that there are ways around it, and that like the inability to read music isn't as shameful as it felt
Mm.
back then. Because it's hard. It's really
Oh, yeah,
hard.
absolutely, and like I said, to this day, I can't read chorus music.
Yeah, it's like learning another language.
Oh, yeah, that music is absolutely a language that you need
Mhm,
to learn to be able to read, that
mhm,
it's a universal language when heard,
mhm. Yeah,
and that
yeah.
you don't need to know a thing about music to enjoy it, to appreciate it, to be moved by
Mhm,
it, but if you are
mhm,
going to create it, you need to learn the well, you don't necessarily need to learn the language, um,
mhm.
but there is certainly a language to be learned.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Thank you, the BFG Division and Glacius 2002 for the follows.
Mm. But yeah, interesting that we have that unexpected, overlap in
Yeah, just
experience.
faked chorus and just
Mhm.
for me and band, it wasn't even that I faked it, but at the very least, it started as they had no other options.
Mhm, mhm.
And I saw somebody in chat ask, "Have I played the trombone game?" I've seen it around. What was it?
Ooh.
Trombone Simulator, I think it was, or I don't know. I have not played it
Interesting.
yet. I've seen it, and I think it's hilarious and just super fun. It's
Mhm.
obviously not a good indication of playing trombone, but Guitar Hero wasn't a good indication of playing guitar. That doesn't mean it wasn't a super awesome game that people loved, and I'm
Mhm.
super happy to see it around. I almost worry that I would not be good at it because I'd be trying to think of it too much as real trombone.
Mhm. Yeah. I really love your trombone story though, and how like even though for a long time you had to fake it until you made it and you were surrounded by people who felt, kind of like legions above you. I feel like it speaks nicely to the notion of like even though it might for lack of better terms, there's a notion that like a lot of my friends who work in tech um like to echo, which is the notion that like it's actually good to be like the worst person at something in a room or like the
Mm,
dumbest person in the room
yeah, because
because
then
that
you
means
can
that you
learn
have
so
room to
much.
learn. Yeah, and and grow. And I think learning to like accept that and not be afraid of that has helped me so much to just be able to like enjoy life more, like especially through this platform because I don't know,
Mm,
like growing up like in a really strict Asian household, I always had ingrained to me that like whatever I did, I had to do it well. And so it was a really big blocker for me doing things like as simple as buying a Lego kit and feeling like I was capable of doing it and doing it
mm.
well. And so it's been nice, like, I've been kind of, learning to get over that hurdle through the stream and just, like, finding things that I want to do and accepting, like, I'm probably gonna be bad at this, I'm gonna mess it up, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're gonna figure it out together
Yeah,
on the stream.
and my mentality playing trombone was not always, "Oh, I'm awful, I don't belong here." That
Mhm.
I'm I'm a generally I like to think that I'm a generally positive person and generally a realist, that for the first
Mhm.
year, when I was in 7th grade, having only played trombone for, 4 months before the school year started, I, to this day, believe I was very bad, and that
Mhm.
I probably shouldn't have been there. By the end of 7th
Mhm.
grade, I belonged there and I was fine. I was still noticeably rougher than others
Mhm.
in my year, and
Mhm.
I fully believe that I was, to this day, that I was rougher than the others in my year,
Mhm.
but that I was still, by the end of 7th grade, passable.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that it was not, "Oh, I think I'm terrible and I need to be the best." It
Mhm.
was, "I've quite literally been playing for fewer years than everyone else." It's
Mhm.
the plain truth of it all. And that
Mhm.
puts me at a disadvantage, and that
Mhm.
I just didn't want to be seen as embarrassing or bad. That I didn't care if I
Ah.
was the best. I didn't care if I was first chair. That
Mhm.
it just so happened that everybody else who was playing trombone there picked it up at about the same time or even a year
Mhm.
later than me. So I just
Mhm.
had that little bit of extra experience on them, or that I happened to be a little bit better than the one other guy who had played it as long as I had.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's sort of where the mentality came through of
Mhm.
just I've had less time.
Mhm. Mhm. That
But
was a good opportunity. Got you out of that art rotation.
yep. Oh, yeah, no, and just the friends that I made in band, the memories,
Mhm.
and especially in college, that getting involved in marching band, I was really
Mhm.
involved with marching band and other
Mm.
orchestras and musical groups on campus in college. So it became
Mhm.
a big part of my life. That was my Utaite community,
Oh,
or
I
my
love
K-pop
that.
community rather.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that.
I'm trying to think. You'd mentioned, gosh, I know you have to go in about a half hour, and there were a couple things that we're gonna talk about. We're probably not gonna be able to get to all of them.
Mm.
Um, Hopping back to your working streams a little bit, I
Mm.
know that some of the things you're working on right now is merch and original music, and I guess let's go from
Mm.
one type of music to the other. That we've had the
Mm.
covers, we've had our choral experiences, and that now
Mm.
you are actually looking into original music. So where are you in that process? Is it still, early concept, or are you in active composition, or
Mm.
are you in post-production? Where are you with that?
Let's see. Composition has been composed by the wonderful Pure Smile who has worked with Phoebe before. And so we're on to the melody and lyric making phase, which I'm hoping
Mm,
to work with a friend on. It's kind of like both a really exciting and also nerve-wracking phase because it feels so formative in terms of like the experience that the listener will have when they eventually listen to the song. But that's kind of the next step. And then from there, it's it goes into like music video production and things like that. So it's going to be really exciting to find talents to work with
mm.
to kind of get into that part of the process as well.
If you're comfortable saying, what what is the style of the piece? That is this one that is going to lend itself more to your K-pop roots, or Are you willing to say if this is, something along the lines of a ballad or a pop song, or do you want to keep that one secret for now?
It's it's not so much K-pop. It's probably gonna sound more familiar to um like pop in the Japanese realm of music, probably closer to like something Utayate meeting. But I would absolutely love to do a K-pop centric track one day if I can come across the right talent
I
to
mean,
do
we've
something
already
like
discussed League of Legends. KDA is right there.
just call them up like, hey.
No, no, no. I'm saying for you to do a cover of a KDA song.
Oh yes, yes. Oh, I love singing those songs so much on stream. It would be a dream to have like a song of my own though. It would feel like the circle of cherry life coming
Mhm.
all the way back around. But like I mean, even where I'm at now, like I never imagined, little me who used to just belt Britney Spears in the car, as a little kid, like never would have imagined being here where like I'm in the middle of working on a song, that will be my song.
Mhm.
Like even that is really, really cool as well.
Yeah. I know you're also working on merch, which I don't know where that is in its production cycle.
Yes, I've always wanted to do. Okay, when I was in 6th grade, we had to do a project where we made something to reflect like a career that we could imagine ourselves having or wanting in the future. And like little naive 6th grade me made a little fashion portfolio because I remember whenever I would go shopping, I was always unhappy with the clothing options that were available, like one way or another. Like it wouldn't seem to fit my style or like something
Mm.
that really felt like it reflected me. Um, and so I've always wanted to try designing apparel, and I'm still trying to think of exactly the direction that I want to go with that. But I know that I want to do it, and I want to be very hands on, like in the production and the design of all that. I think the really cool thing about being a VTuber is that being a VTuber has made all of these ventures like accessible as possible realities for me, and so I kind of just want to take advantage of like every venture that I can take or try out. Because I think recently, after leaving a 9 to 5 job and having the privilege of just like existing and like learning different trades and learning different skills, like that in and of itself has been fun. So I kind of just want to try to put on as many different hats as I can, like while I have this privilege of being able to do so. Um,
Do you
so
have a
yeah.
vision of what type of apparel you'd be looking at least in sort of, general garment? Would you be looking at t-shirt,
Mm.
sweatshirt, accessories?
I love winter. I love cold weather. So sweaters and like hoodies are definitely my inclination, but definitely like t-shirts and stuff as well. I actually have a design that is going to be given off like for my top donors for the birthday event that I'm running this year
Oh, yes, yeah,
in
I've
celebration of my
completely
birthday.
neglected to mention that you are coming fresh off of your, 7-day birthday celebration week. Happy birthday,
Mhm.
by the way.
Thank you, thank you. Today's actually the last day, so like it's extra special because I get to be here, and then I get to wrap up my whole birthday event. But technically, there is a T-shirt that's already been designed for that, so I'm kind of starting off there.
Ooh.
But ugh, sweaters. I would love sweaters for me and for
Mhm.
everyone around me.
Would this be, just normal, no hoodie sweater? Would you want a hoodie? Would it be a zip up? Do you have any visions for that, or you just know it has to be something that is warm and comfy?
I really like they're kind of more trendy now, but sweaters that have designs like on the sleeves because they're kind of
Yeah.
funky and unique. And I've always liked that in my wardrobe, kind of like having pieces that aren't exactly the standard thing that you would find, when you
Yeah,
would go
yeah.
to like your average mall and like walk into a store. So I really want to do sweaters with like cool sleeve designs and not just like Cheri Fish branded things, but also kind of just venturing out into like designs and like a look that anyone might want to wear, you know?
Mm.
Uh, so that I'm really excited about. But, I'm also a very big advocate of having your giant hoodie with a comfortable hood that you can pull over your head when you just want to
Mhm,
escape the
mhm.
world. So that's the kind of comfort I would like to provide as well. But yeah, just comfy wear that has kind of like an understated personality to it, I guess. Because like I've personally never been the kind of person who can wear like really, really overstated like anime apparel, for
Yeah,
example.
that's exactly where I find myself, that I
Yeah.
enjoy wearing things that have, uh, brands or fandoms that I'm passionate
Mm,
about. So,
mm,
whether that be an anime t-shirt or something, but like
mm,
I'm totally fine wearing like a graphic t-shirt with
mhm.
like an anime that I enjoy or something, but I've never really been the type to wear one that's like, super over the top one that
Mhm.
um one of my favorite jackets is it's this zip up Zelda jacket that has the Triforce on the back, but even
Mhm.
that is, it's a big Triforce, but it it looks nice and not gaudy, and
Yeah.
some folks are able to pull off these really cool, ostentatious designs that would look gaudy on me, but that look great on others.
Uh-huh,
But just,
uh-huh.
I definitely understand wanting ones that are a bit more understated, that
Yeah.
the almost nerdy professional look.
Kind of, yeah. It's like something that has personality, but it's like if you know, you know. Like you'll be able to
Yeah.
look at it and be like,
Yeah, the
"Oh,
type
like
of thing
that's
that
actually
you
a Zelda thing," but
mhm.
wouldn't be off-putting to, you
Yeah,
know.
that if you're just walking down the street and, people will see it, that it looks just
Mhm.
innocuous enough that, they might think it's a random brand logo or something, but it's actually the
Mhm.
Triforce, and that, if you know, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
one term that you've used that I really like, which I think overlaps with your vision for your apparel, is
Mm.
slice of life branding. That you are a comfy streamer, and
Mhm.
I know of a good number of folks that use the term comfy, and
Mhm.
I think that comfy certainly fits, but I don't know if I've ever heard someone say that they have a slice of life branding.
Mm. Yes.
Like, to you,
Mhm.
what is slice of life branding?
I feel like the easiest way for me to explain this is to talk about kind of like why and how I got into
Mm.
VTubing.
Ooh, okay.
So I actually VTubing has been like my gap year from life that I never had because as one can imagine from like the circumstances that I grew up in from what we talked earlier, I I haven't really lived a life where I've afforded the luxury of just like sitting back at any point. And like even right after college, like I moved immediately from like the East Coast to the West Coast, and I was out here, by myself and like having to find ways to survive and pay rent and just like be here on my own without support from anyone else. And so VTubing has kind of been like my gap year from life, but it actually started off because over the course of the pandemic, my 9 to 5 job just got really, really difficult as someone working in healthcare in ways that were kind of really tough on my mental health.
I can imagine, and I'll admit,
Mhm.
before now, I did not know that you had previously worked in healthcare.
Yes, I worked in healthcare. I did recreational therapy essentially with seniors who had mild cognitive impairments.
Mm.
So it was really, really fulfilling work. And like for the 5 years that I was in it, I actually loved it so much. And it was very fulfilling for me. But over the course of the pandemic, like things got really, really rough. Like not just for me, but
That was the
for,
healthcare field as a whole, and just
yeah,
I
yeah.
I cannot imagine, like,
Hmm.
the the amount of stress it must have put you and others under, but I can
Hmm.
imagine that it was a lot, and I know that there is a not insignificant amount of people who are no longer in the healthcare
Yeah.
field because things were just, eh, obviously stacked against you in so many
Hmm.
ways.
Mhm. Yeah, so, like, I guess, I don't know, things kind of started off, like, in February, I think around February of 2020, like it started feeling less fulfilling, and I found myself more and more just like, all right, time for the 9 to 5. Like, wake up, go to work, come home,
Oh, so that
watch
was even
TV.
before things got crazy.
Yeah, like just that was like in the ambiguity period almost, where there's like something is coming. But it was also because of some like really big changes in management where I worked as well. That unfortunately made the environment like a lot more hostile and less fun to be in. But like through the course of like all of those things happening at once, like it became less of a fulfilling job where like I felt like I was doing something really meaningful and like felt happy at the end of the day. And it just became like just the motions of like wake up, go to work, go home, TV, that's it. And like that was kind of my life. And I realized at some point, like I don't feel like I am living, like I'm just surviving and going through the motions. And I kind of felt the impact of that on my mental health. And I just said like I need to get out of that, because
Mm,
that can get in a really bad place.
yeah.
And so I left my job, and VTubing was picking up at that time. And because I had done like Utaite things before and like had already dabbled in content creation, I was just like, you know what, let's take a gap year. Let's kind of just do this for fun and see where it goes. Because in my professional life, like I basically spent every day helping other people find things that gave them joy and meaning on a day-to-day basis, like whether it was learning a new craft or like doing exercise or like you know doing things that made them um, kind of feel valued and celebrated. That was my job, and it was something that I did for other people. But with the environment and the way that it had become, I lost that for myself. So instead of living, I was surviving. And so with VTubing, I think I wanted my platform to allow me an opportunity to really like live, because I found that while I was going through the motions, I was living a lot vicariously through other people and social media and like seeing things that they would do or like places they would go and saying like that's so cool. I wish I could do that too. But like, oh, obviously I don't have the time, or like I should be putting that energy towards other people. And so the whole slice of life thing was actually kind of like a journey for myself to find the things that make life not just about surviving anymore, but really living and like experiencing things and doing things that actually give life meaning and make me happy. And so, like, I always knew my stream wasn't just going to be a place where I wanted to like portray a character or sign on and play video games every day. And like, there's nothing wrong with people who do that. Like, if that gives you joy and meaning, like, there's nothing wrong with it. But I knew it wasn't for me. And so I knew that like this platform would be about me kind of putting my life like on the table, like on my sleeve for everyone to see as I kind of figure out like what is my slice of life? Like, what are the things that I can do to bring joy and meaning into my life? And so the whole platform has been about that journey, kind
And
of,
an
if that
interesting piece
makes
of it
sense.
is that even though you spent so long, like you said, helping others find that joy and find
Hmm.
that purpose and drive, that I'm guessing it meant that when you started this journey, that you
Hmm.
intuitively knew which questions to ask yourself. That even if you didn't know the answers
Hmm.
yet, that you'd probably ask others the same questions enough to make it so that
Hmm.
you were starting with the right questions for your own.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and, like, even though, like, in me explaining it, it might sound, like, really grand, like, a lot of those journeys of self-discovery were as simple as, like, I'm gonna allow myself to buy a Lego kit and sit down and learn how to build Legos, or, like, I'm gonna learn how to cook omurice today, or learn how to needle felt, or, like, explore, like, a new trade or skill that I had never given myself the time to do before. And like in a way that was really difficult for me, because as a healthcare professional, doing things for yourself and being selfish aren't really, a part of um the the way that you carry yourself. Like, you're essentially someone who services other people. And so like I almost went to it in with like a great fear of like this is kind of like a really selfish thing for me to do. Um, but wonderfully enough, like I found over time that me doing those things that I didn't feel comfortable in and just taking the time to slow down and enjoy like these little pleasures in life, it actually kind of really affected other people and made them think like I should slow down too and like do this thing that I've always thought was really cool that I didn't make the time to do. And so that's kind of what the slice of life branding has been about. It's about finding the little pleasures and joys that make life actually a beautiful experience of living and not just surviving.
Mm. Oh,
Mm.
I'm a little bit frustrated right now because we're nearing the end of our time, and I feel like we could go another 2 hours, but I know you have stuff to do, so I'm gonna start
Mhm.
winding us down. I have a couple of last
Yeah.
questions. The first is, do you have any goals for the remainder of the year that we're just about to get into
Mm.
October, so it's really, the last quarter of the year. Do you have anything that you're really hoping to accomplish? And it could be something that is,
Mm.
tangible or metrics based, or it could just be I
Mhm.
want to complete that first original song, or I want to do a
Mhm.
type of stream. That what goals do you have for the remainder of 2022?
Yeah, I think for the remainder of 22, I definitely wanna make more progress, on the original song. I think coming off of the partner push now as well, I have a little bit more freedom to go back to my more, like, explorative nature of the stream because during a partner push, unfortunately have to find the things that pull in the strongest numbers and the most consistently, and so that has kind of been limiting, in a way. So I'm excited to have that freedom back and be able to be more experimental with my streams as well. And I I am going on vacation in November, and that for me is a big
Yay!
deal. And I'm excited to see kind of what I discover in that particular slice of life. Um, yeah, also in November, I'm hoping for, well, I can't speak too much on it because it hasn't been revealed yet, but there are some charity things as well, that I'll be participating in as well. So I think
In
those are kind of
February, you said?
in November.
In
In
November.
November,
Ooh, okay.
yeah.
Yay!
Yay! So I think those are kind of where my mind are right now when
Mhm.
I hear that question.
Fantastic. And definitely let me know when that charity stuff happens. That I'm
Yeah.
always gonna do my best to help others promote any charity efforts. And if there's anything I can do
Mhm.
to help contribute to that, let me know. But whatever it
Mhm.
ends up being, I will definitely be keeping an eye out for it.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. Thank you.
And then the last question that I ask all my guests: what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that is not asking me to be a VTuber, but to you, Cheri Fish, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And I've had folks answer on many different axes that I think Hoshi's answer, and one of the things we haven't really spoken about in length is
Mhm.
Foodtopia. That obviously you are a member of
Mhm.
Foodtopia, which is a fantastic group of company
Mhm.
streamers. I have had the privilege of having, I think at this point, 5 or 6 members of the group
Yeah.
on. Hoshi
Mhm.
being there, and if memory serves, Hoshi's answer was that VTubing lets him get in touch with his inner child. And I've had
Mm.
answer with a bit of a more clinical, it is a mask that I wear, it is a tool that I use as an entertainer. And
Ah.
both answers are totally valid, anything between beyond, but different people get different things from VTubing. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, for you, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
Mm. It's kind of ironic for me because I think for me, VTubing has been almost like a second chance at this life in which I get to experience it more organically as myself, which is kind of ironic because I am someone behind this anime face, you know. But in a way that's helped me to be more myself and explore parts of myself that I didn't get to before. So yeah, I think for me, VTubing has been a second chance at life and a chance at doing it in a way that's actually more organic to me.
Mm,
Mhm.
I always ask that question because I feel it sort of puts a bow on things. And while I never know how someone is going to answer, when I get answers, they always make sense. And given all the things
Mhm.
that we've discussed, just your various experiences, that the answer makes sense. And I'm just so happy that VTubing has been able to be something that has been such a positive force in your life, that you've been able to do all the things you've done, that you've been able to get to partner, that you've been able to find this outlet and cultivate
Mhm.
this wonderful, wonderful community. And obviously, thanks to all the folks in chat and anyone who might be watching on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Like,
Hi.
comment, subscribe, all that jazz. But obviously,
Mhm.
VTubing has become a very major part of your life, and I cannot wait to see where you go from here because I know the best is yet to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
The pleasure is all mine. As we start to wind down, do you have anybody that you would like us to raid?
Oh, good
I'll let you look
question.
around while I do some last housekeeping things. So, again, for
Mhm.
anybody in chat, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay. This is VTuber Talk. Oh, it's Bird's Eye and the Imaginative Skipper. Thank you so much for the follows. I missed those a little bit ago. Thank you again, Rena Marina, for the raid. I do these shows usually once a week. I actually am going to be having the rare three show week actually, because I
Ooh.
have another show on Tuesday. It's going to be with the Arcan. That's already been announced on Twitter. And just earlier today, I finalized a show which will be next Saturday. So it does mean technically a three-show week. Um, my schedule varies wildly because I do my best to schedule to my guests' schedule and not my own. But on average, I have about one show a week. This is episode 77 of VTuber Talk now. And yeah, if you are interested, feel free to follow me here on Twitch or on Twitter. It's just slash VTuber Talk in both places. My episodes are up on YouTube usually about a week after broadcast. And, I'm just sort of going through and talking with a bunch of different people, and it's always such a joy. So I hope you'll join me for more shows in the future. But even if not, be sure to follow Cheri if you are not already doing so for some absurd reason.
You'll see me around.
Most definitely. All right. Do you have
Mhm.
someone for us to raid?
Hashi actually very fittingly is streaming
Oh,
about what his last project should be for 2022.
ooh.
So I feel like this is a really good chance to go back and see if this lines up with his answer.
And just making sure I'm not forgetting that his Twitch
Mhm.
URL is just Hoshi,
Just
right? That it
Hashi,
is,
yeah.
yeah, okay. I,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
always forget, if somebody has, the full name or the VT, and I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that he's updated it his at some point. So wanted to make sure we're sending folks to the right place. But yes,
Mhm.
that is awesome. We're going to be sending you all to Hoshi, who is the leader of Fuatopia. Be sure, like I said, to check out Cherry streams, Hoshi streams, the rest of the Fuatopians. They are all wonderful, wonderful people, and just cannot say enough good things about them. So again, Cherry, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. This has been a total blast. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful final day of your birthday week streams, and
Mhm.
I am sure we will be seeing each other around.
Yes, of course. I would love to come back. Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
I'm so glad you did. Well, thank you, and thank you again, Chad. Tell Hoshi we
Mhm.
say hi. Oh yeah, we should have some sort of raid message.
Oh, yes.
Cherry
Uh,
sent us.
yes,
There we go.
that works.
Yeah, because from there, Hoshi will be able to figure out that if the raid's from me and that if Cherry sent us, I'm sure that
Mhm.
he'll connect the dots there.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, have a wonderful time at Hoshi's, and I will see you all next time.